Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Roseville Joint Union High School District Board meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. It's 7:09. Apologize for a little bit of late start. Barbara, will you take the roll, please?
Let's roll call, please. Mr. Constant?
Good to be here.
Ms. Hall?
Here.
Ms. Hirota?
Here.
Mr. Huber? And Mr. Tag?
Here, all 5 board members are present here for the meeting. We also have a student board member here this evening. Welcome, Elizabeth. We have not had our student, we just engaged our new student board members, and they will be here on a regular basis. We'll have one student board member each meeting, and they'll be meeting prior to the board meeting with Superintendent Becker and one other board join that pre-meeting discussion with the student board. So welcome. And Elizabeth, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, a reminder of the meeting protocols. There will be an opportunity to speak to the Board of Trustees on items not on the agenda during the public comment item 3.5, and an opportunity to speak to items on the agenda when that item comes for consideration. You must complete the comment form located on the table in the back of the room to speak to any of the agenda items or non-agenda items. I have some comment cards already filled up here at the front. We'll call on you, and when it's your turn, come up and speak. If 1 to 9 members of the public wish to comment on agenda or non-agenda items, the timeline for public comment will remain at 3 minutes per person. We'll have the clock on the video screen. If 10 or more members of the public wish to comment on agenda or non-agenda items, the timeline for public comment will be 90 seconds. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Item 3.3, report of action from closed session. Closed session on a motion by Board Member Huber, a second by Board Member Constant. The Board of Education voted to approve a stipulated expulsion order by a majority vote of 5-0. We also had, that was a closed session item 2.1. Closed session item 2.2 was information. Item 3.4, communications. Superintendent Becker, do you have any communications?
No communication this evening.
Item 3.5 is public comment. Again, these are items not on the agenda. Have a here. Are these all 3.5? All right, so Barbara, do you have the clock ready to go? We have more than 10 on public items. It'll be 90 seconds, 1.5 minutes. So we'll start with Zoe Sheritz. Followed by Joseph Kopis. Go ahead, Zoe.
Hi, I'm here to talk about rape culture. At the school I currently go to, there have been lots of rapes and nothing has been done about it. My best friend had to transfer schools and even districts to get away from her rapist. And the school did nothing about this when she brought it up to them. She went to the assistant principal, she went to the principal, nothing happened. She was forced to move away from all of her friends and to restart her academics because she didn't want to be around her rapist. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Zoe. All right, Joseph, followed by Charlie Vanderveen.
Hello, students, families, and board members. My name is Joseph Hoppus. I'm a former student in this district, and I decided to come to talk to you guys today. And I wanted to talk about the problems that are facing this district. Granite Bay, Antelope, Independence, Oakmont, Roseville, Wood Creek, West Park, and my former school, Antelope High School. Students are walking in the halls in fear of their lives of being sexually assaulted, and that should not be a thing. It shouldn't be our jobs as students to stop a student from hurting someone. In fact, it is your job. It is your job to protect families, students, and to make sure we have a safe learning experience. No one should have video evidence of being sexually assaulted and then letting it get away and have the student and the rapist be in the same school. It's just true. I ask you, will you help fight for this cause? We want to make sure you guys are hearing us. We want to make sure our educators can come and see us. We see you all the time talking big talk, but you're not doing anything. And we want change, and we want it now. We're not here waiting for the next board meeting. We want it now. If you know anything about our current generation, they are very-
Joseph, your time's up. Thank you.
Okay.
Charlie and then Ella Joy Bystrowski.
My name is Charlie Vanderveen. I'm a student at Granite Bay, and I'm one of the organizers of the recent protests against sexual violence. I am protesting and I am angry because my friends and I are not safe at school. Sexual violence has become a part of RJUHSD culture, and no real action is being taken. Why am I going to school with rapists? Why are we sitting next to them in class and making excuses for them as if they deserve any amount of dignity? I have walked with my friends on campus, and they have urged me to walk faster to avoid someone they later told me was a rapist on multiple occasions. I have been in person in this district for less than 1 semester total, and I already have a mental list of people to avoid looking at in the halls because they have hurt people I love. Reminding students of the importance of consent is a baby step in the right direction. It is useless if no action is taken. No one thinks you want students to be violent. Everyone knows there are no consequences if they are. Stop staying silent because you're afraid to speak up. We are more afraid than you are.
Ella, followed by Michelle Derby.
My name is Ella Joy Bystrowski, and I am a junior at Granite Bay High School. So this is an issue that is known amongst the district and all of the students, and something that has been brought up to staff and administration at every single school in the district. This is a huge issue because there has been zero change. I have a statement from a West Park student saying that I go to West Park and I am a sophomore. Someone was sexually assaulted in the bathroom and no one did anything about it. Something needs to change. If this is horrible. This is not happening at Granite Bay, which many of you have said, oh, is this because of what happened at Granite Bay? No, it is not because of what happened at Granite Bay. It is because of what is happening in our district and what has been happening for years. So leading into the protest at Granite Bay, I'd like to bring up how a lot of students overheard teachers and staff and administration talking about the protest. There were teachers who were seen talking and laughing about it, saying that it was a joke and that students just seemed dumb. And that is disgusting, and that is not something that I am proud of as a Grizzly. So not only that, but there were students, they were going to throw rocks at my head, or that they wanted to effing kill me because I was up on the stage and I was holding up a sign. That is horrible, and that is not something that any so students are hoping for this to be a demonstration. We need change. The lack of education surrounding consent, assault, and harassment, along with students feeling unsafe speaking up in fear of being blamed, ignored, and dismissed, should be incredibly embarrassing for all of you and everyone out here. So voice who isn't doing something to fight for their students. Students should feel safe on their campuses, and we should not be embarrassed to say that we go to they or any of the other surrounding schools. Thank you.
Michelle Derby from Wood Creek. Followed by Diana Jimenez.
Michelle Derby. Not really too ready, but I wanted to go off and ask about the COVID funds, but I didn't really get to research too much. I only have one of your guys' COVID funds. I'm thinking that since you guys accepted this flood money, this is why you guys are going along with the guidelines. I know you're saying that you're not going to, but you're all wearing masks. And then my kid, I had to pull her out of school because she was telling me that she was told she had to wear a mask, and you guys were like, no, we're not going to do the mask, and we're not going to do the vaccine sites. And Placer County already has them going to high schools and junior highs to brainwash our children, and mental health counselors. My daughter also went to the wellness center all the time, and you guys really messed her up. But let's see here. Okay. $9 million for just one COVID relief package. Is that what you guys accepted? And that's why you're going through with these corrupt guidelines from the government. I'm asking for a resolution. These kids do not need to be told that they can't breathe. It's a guideline, first of all, to mandate. It is not a law. There's executive, legislative, and judicial. So these little laws that people think they're doing, it's not really something that you are able to enforce. And a law is something where if you get in trouble, it's grounds for being arrested. There is no law to say that you have to restrict children's breathing. These masks don't work. There's so much science behind the fact that they don't work. So for you guys to even say kids should wear a mask, and there's 99.99% survival rate, and then now kids are being forced to get a vaccine that's not even approved. It's disgusting and disgraceful, and I'm embarrassed.
Thank you,
because,
Michelle. Your time is up.
yeah, well, I've been a resident here for 38 years, and this is gross.
Diana Jimenez. Diana, followed by Nicole Young.
Hello, Diana, and I'm from Antelope High School. Today I'm going to be talking about ethnic studies. In my ethnic studies class, there was this boy that was white. At first, I thought, why he's white, he has privilege. Why would he want to take this class to talk about America if he knew everything about its history? Because he looked like one of them, because he was one of them. As we started to get to know more about ethnic studies class itself, taught by my amazing teacher, Mr. Demand, I got to know the person more, and I realized that he was not just white, but he was from a Hispanic culture. He was Mexican, just like I am, with his own battles, struggling with his own identity of how to fit in a bubble, where he looked like a certain group, a white person, but was raised in a completely different culture that he connects with people that he looked nothing like him. With ethnic studies, I have realized that everyone was just as lost as I am. The ethnic studies class helps students from different backgrounds, races, and ethnicities become more vulnerable, more honest with ourselves and each other, express who we truly are without being scared of being judged. The reason I am here standing before all of you today is to voice my opinion about ethnic studies, a topic that is very important to me to share because this class opened my eyes to understand and accept that everyone comes with struggles, everyone comes with privilege. Everyone comes with power. It is what we do with those resources that matter. To see change in the future generations, we have to be capable of seeing the wrongs of the world in order to correct them. And ethnic studies is one step into that direction. Ethnic studies is one step closer to moving forward. Thank you for listening to me. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you, Diana. Nicole. Young, Y-O-U-N. Followed by Tim Bros.
I'm here today to talk about the upcoming vaccine mandate. I feel like we can be respectfully, civilly disobedient. I asked you, board, in August about the mask mandate to be brave, and you wrote a resolution. I'm not going to ask you to write another resolution. I'm going to ask you to be respectfully, civilly disobedient and protect a parent's right to choose. There are other school boards that have decided they are going to defy the mandate. Tim Garman of Happy Valley School Board in Anderson, California, and Carroll's Public Charter School. They're not enforcing the mandate for students or teachers. They believe in personal choice. Tyranny. The definition of tyranny is unjust or oppressive governmental power. I wonder if that sounds familiar to anyone. Liberty. Liberty is the condition of being free from oppressive restriction or control by a government or other power. Decide now what side of history you want to be on. Thank you.
Kim Bros, followed by Lisa Mendenhall.
First, I'd like to thank the board for being proactive against the possible mandate that may be coming. COVID vaccines are safe and effective. Safe and effective. Safe and effective. Safe and effective. This is all that we hear from mainstream media and big tech. Any opinion outside of safe and effective is immediately deemed misinformation or conspiracy theory and censored. When in human history were the people burning books, censoring speech, the good guys. Repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth is a law of propaganda often attributed to the Nazi Joseph Goebbels. In the psychology world, we call this illusion of truth. VAERS, reporting vaccine adverse reactions. In 30 years, all vaccines combined, there have been 724,000 roughly cases. In 10 months with a COVID vaccine, there have already been almost 600,000. Hospitalizations, 30 years of all vaccines combined, 38,000 roughly. In 10 months of the COVID vaccine, we have almost 35,000. Deaths from all vaccines combined over the last 30 years from all other vaccines, 5,129, and in 10 months, COVID vaccines have 7,437. These are facts. It is not a safe vaccine. The COVID vaccine is not effective either. I have.
That's it. Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Lisa Mendenhall. Lisa, followed by Chris Kent.
Good evening, Lisa Mendenhall, Oakland parent, and I'm just here to reiterate what we're hearing from other parents regarding the mandated vaccine. I know it's not here yet, but with the October 1st announcement, I would just ask that you as a board stand by your resolution that was put in place, Resolution 2116, back at the end of August, stating that you would not mandate the vaccine for our kids or teachers. So I ask you to stand by your word and represent us as parents in giving us choice so that we have choice for our children and decision-making authority for our children. Let's remember that we live in America, land of the free. My second request is regarding the masks. We have been doing this way too long. And 2 weeks? Yes. I go back to what Ms. Hall said. I believe it was possibly the same meeting, but in August. When is enough enough? When is enough enough?
Sir.
I'm talking. It's my minutes.
Sir, hang on one second. Stop the clock. Sir, please let the speakers speak. Thank you. Go ahead, Lisa.
We know that masks inhibit expression of our kids. Masks inhibit our kids' ability to communicate, to develop those all important interpersonal skills. And it's abuse, and we are doing wrong by our kids by mandating the mask. So I ask that we go back to our original plan at the end of July, which was to have mask choice, and to not put our teachers in the compromising position to enforce the mask. If children want to wear a mask, that's fine. But for those who believe in the true science and their body's natural ability to fight disease and utilize their own antibodies that they've built up over time, please let our kids have their freedoms back.
Thank you.
Please let our kids.
Thank you, Lisa. Chris Kenton, followed by Vicky Kenton.
Hello, board. Thank you, each and every one of you who are here tonight, because I know that you guys are doing a lot of work behind the scenes that we'll never know. For years and years, we've all sat back and let boards of directors, such as yourself, trustees, run our school districts and pretty much not informed. And now we've come to a moment of crisis when all of a sudden we're depending on you to do the right thing, and all of a sudden we found out that we really don't have those actions being taken. I've got this thing. I don't know if you recognize this, property taxes. I got 4 of these here, and 6 out of 10 items say Roseville High School on them. Honestly. Yet if I don't pay it, that man with the gun and those bullets are going to drag me out of my house and take me to jail. Well, I'm ordering by good standing that this officer take Scott Hubert and Andrew Hogg and this gentleman with the mask over there and dismiss them. I dismiss them on good standing. We have 3 volunteers in this audience who will take your place right now and do the right thing under the Constitution. Honestly, officer, will you come over here? Okay, right. So I don't have authority to do that. Well, neither does the governor have authority to tell you guys what to do. We depend on you to make the right decisions. And as much as that officer's not doing what I say, even though I have good standing, you guys are expected to stand up against this tyranny, represent the people. Look at this vote. We are 5-1 non-masked against masks. And I honor and respect these people's decision to wear a mask, but I don't need a computer to tell me that we are the majority here of these people's faults. But obviously, you're blind to it. Do the right thing. The next time that order is given, it'll be followed.
Time's up, Chris. Tad Cook is next.
This is neither a complaint nor a threat. This is researched information and my family's personal testimony. Parents are and will be abandoning our school district. Are you aware? Do you care? 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August when the vaccine mandate came out. Do you care? 35,000 new families filed homeschool affidavits in California during July. Do you care? It's becoming a huge support system for more parents who don't want to continue this abuse. Masking is cruel and inhumane treatment of our children. The resistance that breathing through a mask for hours puts on their lungs and heart is damaging. Rebreathing bacteria from their masks all day is damaging. Requiring an experimental biological DNA altering fluid to be injected into our children is cruel and inhumane. You're not mandating it now, but you will when the price is right. I didn't realize how far behind in coursework my daughter was until we started online COD Academy and IXL coursework last month. 3 consecutive years of reduced curriculum has left my smart and hardworking child behind for her age. 6 weeks after disenrolling from public school, I asked her about the difference she has between public school and homeschooling, and she says she loves that she's no longer shamed, muzzled, or shushed constantly for being a normal child. Her days are full of freedom and joy in homeschool pod. She's happy to do the required California curriculum online.
Thank you,
at her own
Vicki.
pace.
Your time's up. Tad Cook, followed by Allison Ware.
Good evening. I have taught in this district as a history teacher for 22 years. I've dedicated half of my life to teaching thousands of young people about the rights and freedoms that make this country so great. I tell my students to not be afraid to voice their views and to respect others' differing opinions. Tonight, I am compelled to be brave and speak with my heart about what I believe to be right. In the past 2 weeks, the governor has announced that all students, possibly as early as January, will be mandated to take the new, rapidly approved emergency COVID vaccines to attend any school in California. This mandate, despite a minuscule chance of this age group getting seriously ill by COVID. This will also surely cause school staff to be forced to be vaccinated or face termination. How unfortunate for so many teachers that have dedicated their lives to educate children to be forced out over a clearly political charged decision by one government official. Now, in the last few days, despite data showing COVID numbers declining, a neighboring district is mandating an immediate COVID vaccine requirement for staff by November 30th and students by early January. Thousands of students' families will most likely refuse to get the vaccine and opt out to homeschool, thus depriving that district of a significant amount of ADA and funding. I believe the same results would happen here in our district. Myself and dozens of other staff fear this mandate will come to our district. I know a significant number that will leave teaching or leave California. Our district and most districts in the region do not have enough subs daily to cover absent teachers. How will districts handle losing 5 to 10% of their staff who refuse the vaccine? LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who is
Thank you, Chad. Your time's up. Allison Ware, followed by Joel Manfredi.
I'm here today to voice my concerns with what lies around the corner. Teacher in the district and parent of 2 school-aged children, and I'm terrified with the current state of affairs. Okay said, the ultimate measure of man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy and error. I think it's morally and ethically wrong to force anyone to get this vaccine and to segregate and treat those who don't have it differently. It's already begun. Kids shouldn't have to choose between the vax and being a member of schools or teams. Parents shouldn't have to worry about whether their kids will be allowed to go to school at any given moment. Workers who have faithfully worked and survived this pandemic so far shouldn't have to choose between vaccine and job. It's wrong. I hear the reasons of others. I believe in dialogue. It's important. I believe in compromise and working together and tolerance. Thomas Sowell said, the most basic question is not what is best, but who shall decide what is best. He's making these decisions for all of us. I have a problem with these mandates, because I don't believe they're what's best based on information I've received. I believe individuals should be stakeholders in decisions of their own lives, their own bodies, their own families. I accept the decision of those who want them, but I disagree with imposing them on everyone. I have more to say.
Okay. Joel Manfredi, followed by Angelina Silva.
Joel Manfredi, teacher at Wood Creek. I love teaching here. I'm against vaccine mandates for anyone. I believe there's a gross conflict of interest in the application of these vaccines. Please fact check anything I'm about to say. The CDC owns 57 vaccine patents. The CDC is a vaccine company. The NIH owns hundreds of vaccine patents and owns half of the patent for the Moderna vaccine. Please look that up. Scientists and other officials working on vaccines at the NIH make up to $150,000 a year on royalties. I mean, they sell vaccines. These are the same people saying that we need to take this jab for our health and safety. Do you know who funds research on vaccines for the NIH? We do, the taxpayers. It's a well-known fact that pharmaceutical companies have total immunity from any injury sustained by any of their vaccines, including COVID. Pfizer has committed multiple felonies, paid over $4.6 billion in fines since 2000, the biggest fine ever, $2.3 billion because of fraud. The pharmaceutical industry in total has paid out over $56 billion in fines. These are the companies who people now say we should trust to our children and our health and our safety. These are the companies who are immune if you or your child get injured. People have told me lately that I seem angry. Well, they're right. I am angry because I'm sick of the belief that basic human liberties are contingent upon consumption of an experimental product from felonious companies that are blatantly in bed with our government and make their products with taxpayer money, then reap the rewards as they are shielded from liability. I'm only wonder why everyone else isn't as angry as I am.
Thank you, Joel. Angelina Silva, followed by Adam Roberts.
I've come to talk in favor of ethnic studies. Ethnic studies in itself is the unwhitewashed version of history. We learn all perspectives, whereas in a typical history class, you would learn only one, the white perspective. Learning one perspective is dangerous. Only one side of the story, only one person's truth, and that's yours. In ethnic studies, we learn all perspectives, and we learn and explore experiences of others and how it impacted them and their community. Ethnic studies doesn't make me scared to talk about my race or other racial issues. As you can see, I'm an Asian American woman, but you want to see the other half of me, which is white. In our classrooms, we've adopted a brave space, which allows room for mistakes, opinions, and personal experiences. In Mr. Demand's class, we have the 7 principles of ethnic studies, number 1 being love and respect, followed by reflection, critical consciousness, hope, solidarity, community, and transformation. While there is a fair organization who is trying to replace the Ethics Studies program, we have to ask why. FAIR believes Ethics Studies curriculum pits against one another based on characteristics like race and gender. But race in itself is completely made up by man, and it's a social construct. A construct where it has been used against each other for hundreds of years. So why is it considered bad or controversial to talk about something that affects everyone still today? Or are you just really afraid of the conversation surrounding race? Afraid to admit that people have different experiences based on their race, and it's crucial to keep and implement the ethics based curriculum so my generation and others can carry themselves with the knowledge of issues that affect everyone.
Thank you, Angelina. Roberts, followed by Jennifer Sanders.
Adam Roberts, I have a son here at Wood Creek. Happy Valley Union School District. Look it up. They voted to defy the mandate of the vaccine. So I've attended a lot of your meetings. I've watched you on Zoom. I know that a few of you have said that you want to do the right thing, but your hands are tied. Your hands are no longer tied. If you don't vote to defy this, you will be known as liars, all of you, liars. And you will have the blood of our children on your hands.
Sure, if you're gonna keep speaking out, you're gonna have to leave. You gotta let the speaker speak. Let the speaker
You're gonna give
speak.
me a couple extra seconds?
I'll give you a couple extra seconds.
Okay, I also wanted to bring up
Hang
Project.
hang on 1 second. Stop the clock. You speak one more time, we're gonna have to end the meeting. Let the speaker speak. Okay?
Wanted to bring up Project Veritas. You can look it up and you can fact check me. They busted Pfizer scientists. Scientists at Pfizer said that natural immunity is more effective than their jab. And if you look at the data on the Placer County Health Department's website, it's updated Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You'll see the facts, the science that our children are not at risk of dying or being harmed from this. So wouldn't we want our kids to have natural immunity rather than inject them with something that could possibly cause myocarditis and death? Do what's right. Don't be a liar. That's all I got to say. I'm really disappointed in everything so far.
Jennifer Santry, followed by Karen Combat.
Board, Jennifer Santry, parent of students here in the district. I'm going to start with, these students are screaming for consent, yet we will not give the students agency over their own bodies to remove a mask or refuse a shot. I am sure everyone is well aware of the governor's announcement on October 1st, stating that he's planning on mandating the COVID shot for school-age students. I would like to remind the board of Resolution 2116, which was passed and adopted on August 26th. The resolution signed by this board states that the Roseville Joint Union High School District shall not adopt mandatory vaccinations for students or staff members against the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. I hope that this statement still stands and both staff and students will be free to make their own health decisions about this medical treatment. As others stated, 2 California schools have recently stated that they are not going to follow the governor's mandate. Tim Garman at Happy Valley requested that other schools join them in standing up against the mandate. Individual districts cannot do this alone. They must come together and stand as one. In past meetings, the board said it did not want to segregate students or staff based on their vaccine status. Now the governor wants to completely remove children from in-person learning based on their status. Pete, you boldly said that we should not be in the vaccination business and said the board would take legal actions such as temporary restraining orders or injunctions on things the board feels are unjust. You made verbal commitment to all of us to move swiftly if a mandate situation comes out. You stated that you will be calling for a special closed session and get with legal counsel and would do what you need to do to protect our students and teachers. I implore the board to have the courage to begin those discussions because there's no time to waste and we need your help.
Karen Combat, followed by Chris Stevens.
Good evening. My name is Karen Combest. I have a daughter at Oakmont High School. She's a junior this year. And COVID's not on the agenda tonight, and it hasn't been for a while. And we've talked about that a lot. And I know the thought is that, you know, we're functioning normally. No major or significant changes warrant having it on the agenda. And I would just beg to differ this time. And I'll probably personally add COVID to the agenda every meeting until we are normal. And as long as my daughter has to wear a mask to walk into an in-person classroom, we're not normal. Any student having to wear a mask, we're still not normal. So I have an ongoing checklist here for Roseville Joint. It's pretty simple. There's a few items on here, and you guys have done a great job in accomplishing almost all of them. We've got in-person school, check. No COVID testing, check. Quarantines, done as of October 11th, check. Thank you very much for that. No vax mandates and no masks. Just two more things. Let's see it through. Let's make sure that we get back to normal for our students. I looked at the Oakmont court pictures last night on Instagram. 3 of the 6 kids took their court pictures with their mask on. I saw pictures from Granite Bay today, classrooms full of kids with masks. I mean, it's too much, and we need to allow them the freedom to show their faces again. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, followed by Kevin Rowe.
My name's Chris Stevens. I want to open up with a quote from Henry Kissinger in February 25th of 2009, quote unquote, "Once the herd accepts mandatory vaccinations, it's game over. They will accept anything, forcible blood or organ donation, quote, for the greater good. We can genetically modify children and sterilize them for the greater good. Control sheep's minds, and you will control the herd. Vaccine makers stand to make billions, and many of you in this room are investors. Everyone's a big win-win." I think you're on that side of this guy. People out here hate this guy. Show of hands, how many people are here for this mask and this vaccination crap? Look at this. Look at this. A majority, not minority. This guy, look at him. North Carolina withholding $7.9 million in funding until its school boards pass provision. Parents in Clark County School District just served their school district in Nevada a $200 million lawsuit. We need some lawyers. Hey, anybody out there that's a lawyer? We need help. Grandmas, grandparents, teachers, students, get to this meeting. We need everyone's help. We need to run these people out.
Thank you, Chris. Your time's up. Kevin Rowe.
My name's Kevin Rowe. I didn't write anything for this. I just wanted to come out and see what was going on. And I can see I have the same opinion that everybody else here has. And I just recently moved here from the Bay Area to get away from all this nonsense. And I've been here for 5 months now. I'm very proud of what Placer County has done to fight against this nonsense. But so disappointed that you guys are falling for this dictator Newsom nonsense. The masks on our kids, we have to stop. Our kids. Can't let politics get in the way of our kids. It's ridiculous. You guys all care about kids here. I know you do. Get over the politics. No mandates on vaccines, no more masks. I got 3 daughters going to all these schools. One in Oakmont, one in Wood Creek, one in Granite Oaks. We have to stop, guys. I love this area. It's the best area ever. I've been in the Bay for 20 years. It is horrible out there. I still work in the Bay. All you see is mass zombies walking around everywhere. Here is a little bit of freedom. Please make it come to our schools. Give us a little freedom back in our schools. You guys are awesome. This place is awesome. You guys, everyone here is awesome. We just have to stick up, go against this mandates, especially the vaccine mandate. I know it's not here yet. I know it's coming. We cannot let that happen. The masks have got to go. Everybody knows you got to breathe. Organs need oxygen. Everything needs oxygen. We cannot starve these kids from oxygen. Please, beg you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, that's the end of public comment on non-agenda items. We are going to move on to committee reports. First, I appreciate all the comments we all do. We've been working at this for 18 months. Most of you know the work that this board has done in terms of passing resolutions, in terms of getting kids back into the classroom last October when most schools stayed in distance learning, bringing kids back 5 days a week in January, offering a virtual academy to those families that weren't comfortable coming back to the district. This board has been about choice, and we've done more than any other district has in this state of California. As long as you know that. Thank you, students, for showing up. We all four of the five of us have daughters, and understand and respect what you're saying and the message that you're saying, and it is very important I know to myself and to my fellow colleagues and boys, excuse me, you're right, and boys, and we understand. In that case, we all have either daughters or sons on this board, and I would certainly be interested in getting feedback, Mr. Becker, just in general on the state of activities at our schools as regards to sexual harassment, to bullying. I know our district does a really nice job with our wellness centers, with our counselings, sorry. And so I will make a promise to you students to follow up on this, on your desires as a whole, because that is important to me, and I believe important to this board to have, and I know it's important to our district staff, our school site principals, our teachers, to have a safe environment, and we should have a safe environment. So I appreciate, and standing up for what you believe in too, and coming here, so thank you too. So with that, we'll move on to committee reports. 3.6 is we had a board policy review committee met on October 5th. Mr. Constant.
As you stated, we had our board policy committee on October 5th. You'll see in your packet 3 main categories of policies. First is emergency schedules. Next is hate-motivated behavior, and the last is sexual harassment prevention. When we look at the ARs related to sexual harassment prevention, they are simply just putting the correct staff member's name and contact information into the policy so that people know who to contact when there's issues of concern. Emergency schedules, the change there is not substantive. It's really just to clarify the processes that we have been taking and to get them documented. Hate-motivated behavior, that's hard to say. That policy is substantially changed. I would suggest that we pull it because of the substantial changes. The notes that I'll just give you ahead of time is when you look at that document, you're going to see lots of red and a little bit of yellow. The yellow is highlighting the specific language that is required for us to have in our federal program review, and that is the language that must be contained. What you'll see in the hate-motivated behavior policy is we essentially stripped out all of the unnecessary language, repetitive language, and really boiled it down to its core of the intent of the board and the required language that we have to pass our federal program monitoring. So I would ask that when we get the consent agenda, we just pull off the hate-motivated behavior, because I know that's been an issue of concern for the board, so we'll have an opportunity to discuss that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Constant. And with that, we are going to proceed into information matters. Item 4.1 is our RSCA report. Is Ms. Fork is here.
Good evening. Okay. On a positive note, RSCA and the teachers wanted to thank the district, in particular Brad Basham and Rob Hasty, for their willingness to help provide testing sites in the district, as well as testing alternatives to lower nasal swab tests. We now have the saliva test, so that's really helpful. This is a great support for those teachers concerned with the chemicals used to sanitize the swabs before packaging them up for use. Some teachers would also like to see universal testing of staff to help ensure the safety of all due to breakthrough cases in the vaccinated beyond just testing the unvaccinated. I've also been reflecting back since we just had our midterms on where we were last year at the same time and how we've come back in a hybrid model, along with how tumultuous that feeling was with all of the unknowns and comparing it to now. While we are not facing those same unknowns, and it's definitely calmer, it still feels like we have hurdles in our way. This year is nevertheless challenging for teachers, which may be because we still haven't had time to really process the events of these last few years while having things piled on our already full plates. It is still raw and challenging to find our footing, and we feel like we did before the pandemic. And I always find myself now talking about pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and even currently. We continue to look forward to the negotiations process this year. We need to remember how hard all of the teachers worked last year to help be one of the groundbreaking schools that returned to in-person instruction, and how the teachers were instrumental in that while juggling fears of COVID infection, online and in-person instruction, constantly changing schedules, etc. It was, and still is, mentally and physically exhausting and draining, a way to show support for all that tremendous work ethic, time, and energy we put into last year and even this year is to support us financially as well. Help keep us caught up with the cost of living was surprised and surpasses quite a bit this past year. We've all noticed the costs have increased for things like our health insurance to gas and groceries. We would like to stay current with the cost of living in order to ensure our teachers are able to afford to live in this area, and we won't lose qualified teachers who move to more affordable areas. We know there is a worker shortage, including teachers, happening, and more teachers are leaving the profession due to the stress and strain caused by the pandemic. Thank you.
Ms. Fork. 4.2 is a school presentation by Antelope High School and their Principal Guzman.
Good evening, everybody. I feel like we all need to just take a quick breath. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to share some of the celebrations from our school this year. One of our core principles in Antelope High School is cultivating connections through both relationships and academics. Tonight, we're going to briefly talk about two of our programs that are creating connections for our students, Link Crew and Dual Enrollment. I'd like to introduce our new Activities Director and Link Crew Coordinator, Caitlin DiOrenzo, to talk about our Link Crew program here at Antelope High School.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I want to take a second to introduce a few of the people I work with who make creating connection possible. For those of you who can see the pictures, I work with a fantastic team: Seth DeMant, Allison Carter, and Jeff Draper. We've had the chance to make significant connections with kids that we haven't had a chance to do in a long time. If you take a look, we had more than 75% of the freshman class show up to their first in-person orientation. And I'd have to say that it all happened because of our Link Crew leaders, who I'd like to introduce to you here. Our Link Crew leaders do a fantastic job and go through significant training. So the first thing that happened, August 2nd through August 4th, we asked Link Crew leaders to take time off of their summer jobs, and we asked them to come to school from 8 a.m. until noon. All of them showed up with significant enthusiasm. On orientation day, which was August 5th, we asked kids to be at school at 6:30 in the morning, and they have breaks throughout the day.
They participated with kindness and responsibility until 9:30 p.m. Orientation day involves significant investment. We start with a welcoming assembly. Link crew leaders use their training in small groups across campus to make connections with freshmen. Later, we close with an assembly where freshmen are all invited to lunch and an outdoor dance afterwards. We had almost no behavior issues, and it was incredibly wonderful to see our students back on campus. We've had social follow-ups throughout the year. They began on October 1st, which was our homecoming. We invited freshmen to a freshman tailgate to teach them some of the wonderful traditions at our football games that have been around since the school opened. Student government played a huge part in that as well. Mr. DeMant, who is my co-link crew leader, did a fabulous job leading it. On October 6th, we worked with students to make sure they were prepared for midterms. We offered junior and senior link crew leaders support to ensure that students understood what midterms are, how to study, and why we study. And finally, we've introduced something new this year. We have a student intervention team made up of our link crew leaders. The student intervention team can be asked to respond by any teacher. Goes through us first though. It's for the minor things so that we catch those little pieces so that we create valuable connections. When a student misses an assignment, when they're tardy to maybe one class, when they start to miss school. We don't deal with the big things, but our link crew leaders are trained in some basic interventions to promote success at school. The biggest thing we're looking forward to with support of the link crew class is our academic follow-ups. Juniors and seniors get to teach a 45-minute lesson into freshman and sophomore classes. They chose the theme building relationships first. Next comes integrity. We continue social follow-ups, which is a major project of the course. Students have a chance to get involved with community engagement. Through the course, I've had the opportunity to connect with students on a different level. We teach foundations of leadership. We consider multiple intelligences and management versus leadership and why there's a huge difference between those two. We move into planning and organizational leadership. Students take on a service project based on all they have learned about group dynamics and how to lead groups through all those different dynamics. This year, students have chosen to focus on clean bathrooms and trash around campus. And finally, students are focusing on those last pieces of social engagement to ensure that freshmen have a safe place where positivity is modeled throughout. I'm incredibly grateful to have the Link Crew class, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you repeat her name for us?
Caitlin DiRenzo. So that's pretty exciting to have this embedded in our curriculum because, as all of you know, for 18 months, students have been, some students have been sitting home on Zoom, and so getting them back into the classroom, re-engage in what it's like to kind of be social, has been challenging, especially our incoming freshmen. And so having a group like Caitlin's group and our teachers support that effort is pretty amazing. Moving next, so that's more of our culture piece, how we engage our kids in our culture. The next piece is more the academic difference that we've had this last 2 years. So this is our second year of having dual enrollment on our campus. And as we and starting this last spring, we began offering dual enrollment in both English 1A and in U.S. History 17B through Sierra College. Started last year, as you look at this graph, we've had 3 sections last year, and this year we have 8 sections of dual enrollment. Generally participating in dual enrollment improves student success in high school and college. We look forward to looking at 3-year trend data. We're at our second year. After next year, we want to look at our 3-year trend data to see what it indicates with our students. Other research indicates that especially for lower income students, this option helps them with retention and high school graduation rates. Dual enrollment now seeks to encourage a broader range of students that we've had than before. If you look at this next slide, this is pretty awesome. First I want to talk about our district is doing a pretty exceptional job providing dual enrollment opportunities for all of our kids. This is our second year. Dual enrollment hasn't been around for 2 years. It's been around for a long time. But lately it's been increasing in enrollment and opportunities for our kids. Being one of the 2 school-wide Title I schools in our district, Antelope, in this slide, you can see we're embracing the challenge. If you look at that chart, of the students enrolled, 68 of our students are key cohort students, students who typically wouldn't be taking a course like this. These are students who sometimes don't think college is an option, and so it's exciting to see that our students are seeing this as an option, a viable option in high school. The next slide here, you can see these are our 2 offerings. Of our students, we have over 50% of our students who are key cohort students. Once again, sometimes they don't see themselves as taking these courses. Sometimes they're afraid to take these courses. Myself in high school, I actually went here to Wood Creek. I would have been one of those students who might have been afraid to take a course like AP. But when I see this option, this might be something viable for me. So it's pretty exciting that our kids get to take these on our campuses, in addition to the other offerings that we offer. What?
Where is the dual enrollment with? What school?
We have them at most of our high schools, other than I don't think Granite Bay currently has it.
No,
Oh, Sierra College.
Sierra College.
Sierra College, yeah. And you typically work with their departments and some of their department staff in those departments. So it's at first it seems a little challenging, but once you cultivate those relationships, it's pretty awesome. I do want to take a moment to introduce one of our students, Katie Gavrilenko. This is her second year taking dual enrollment. She took U.S. History last year, and now she's currently taking English 1A.
Evening, everyone. My name is Katie Gavrilenko, and I am a senior at Antelope High School. My school offers 2 dual enrollment classes, a dual enrollment English class and a dual enrollment history class. I was in the first class of dual enrollment history, so I wasn't too sure what to expect. However, I ended up loving it so much that I decided to take the dual enrollment English class as well. It is amazing how I could start to build my college transcript in high school. It also helps me to prepare for college to understand of what is waiting for me ahead. It is so awesome that we get to actually log into the Sierra College website and use all of their resources, such as the Sierra College Library databases, get help from the librarians, and get help from the Sierra tutors. It is truly an amazing aspect of our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I do want to take a moment. We have 3 teachers on our campus who teach it, and I'm going to just give some shout outs here because over I'm on the mic. So Dana Duncan is one of our teachers. She said that helping to make a course like this available is the most rewarding thing I've been a part of in my entire career. She's our U.S. History 17B teacher. Allison Moore, who was here previously, she's one of our English 1A teachers, and Allison Carter is our 3rd teacher. She's our English 1A teacher. They spent an inordinate amount of time preparing in getting this off the ground, so I do want to give them a round of applause right now for the work they did with getting this off the ground. As we move forward in Antelope, currently we have English 1A, English 17, History 17B. We'll be offering Spanish 3 next year at Antelope High School as a 3rd dual enrollment option, and we are currently investigating political science next year as of now. And so once again, it's challenging. It's rewarding for all of our kids though, and I really appreciate your guys' time listening to us tonight, hearing us out. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions with dual enrollment.
Thank you, Principal Guzman. Board members, any questions? Oh, thank you so much. And I believe the link through was a course that we just approved about a year or 2 ago. Was that right?
Yeah, last year we approved it. It was a school-wide program that was after school.
Yeah.
This is now an embedded curriculum where they get to kind of impact more of the school.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Item 4.3 is a learning loss update with our educational services and Jennifer Layton. Ms. Layton.
Okay, here I am. It's nice to be here this evening to tell you a little bit about what we've been up to in the last couple weeks. I'm going to give you an overview of the ESSER grant and the priorities that were chosen by our stakeholders. And then I'm going to end it with an update on our screener progress and where we are with our learning plans and our learning goals. So, that is not the right slide. Are we ready? Okay. All right. Well, so the ESSER grant stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. And we have had a lot of fun. I've actually been going out to all of the school site councils at each of the high schools. I haven't made it to every one of them, but I think I've been out to 4 of them in the last couple weeks to talk about this and gather their input. I also was able to go to the District English Language Advisory Council last Wednesday evening, and then yesterday I met with Diversify Your Narrative and got some of their feedback as well. So it's been really fun to reach out to our stakeholders and hear their thoughts as well. So the ESSER grant is 20% of it is supposed to go towards learning loss. Ours, I'm happy to report, we've used 26% of it and allocated it towards ways that we think we can support students in their learning and in their recovery. So I'm going to be a little more specific here with that area. We split it into two parts: expanded learning, and that means we want to put more money into professional development of teachers and of all the new programs and the things that we're learning, and actually first instruction in the classroom, so we're excited about that. Credit recovery, more opportunities to regain credit as students move through their courses and maybe stumbled a little bit last year. We want to offer more opportunities for them to make up those classes. A universal screener for academics, and we've been talking about that, and I'll end this presentation with some more information. But that does cost some money, and so we're happy to have that as a priority. Dual enrollment, Mr. Guzman just talked to you about how wonderful dual enrollment is, and we want to make sure we're offering as many of those courses as we can. Canvas learning platform, we are slowly moving, well, maybe not super slow, but we are moving over to a new learning platform, which the colleges are using as well, and have many more opportunities, and is student-friendly and parent-friendly. And so there's going to be some training involved in that. And then also we want to make sure that we have some things going on in the summer and that we have the money to financially support that, such as extra classes, extra social and emotional support, things like that. So we're expanding our learning. And then multi-tiered systems of support. A lot of us have heard MTSS. There's 3 levels. Level 1 is where 80 to 90% of our students are, and they are getting just that quality first instruction that our teachers are offering every day. In tier 2, that's about 5 to 15% of our student body, and that's more of a group intervention type things. Some of the intervention going on perhaps during our intervention periods as small groups working together with teachers to catch up on some skills. And then there's that top tier 3 that's about 1% of our students, and that's for severe learning challenges, emotional challenges, and that's individual support. So underneath here, some of the things we have are hotspots, Wi-Fi, home visits, transportation for our socioeconomically disadvantaged. I knew I could do it. And foster youth, and then staffing for more outreach and mental health, some family education events. As I was visiting our school site councils, they were the most excited about the family education events. And those are just going to be dinner, and let's talk about ways that we can support our students and ways to navigate the school system. So I'm excited to see how those turn out and to start working on those. Intervention programs and staffing. There's a lot to be done in the area of intervention, what's working, what's not, figuring that out and really offering more of what is working. Again, MTSS programs and staffing, all of that ties into intervention. There's lots of different ways we can use it. Universal screener for social emotional learning. Some of our students took that last year, some are taking it right now. And this gives us kind of a red flag alert for students that we need to check in with for their mental well-being. And then of course, that wellness support throughout the summer. So 20% or 26% of our overall funding went to this particular area. I think in some of the waiting around, I feel like I forgot to tell you about September 8th. So originally when we found out that the grant was coming, we kind of just brainstormed a bunch of ways that we could spend it. And then on September 8th, we gathered stakeholders in the Oakmont Library, and every site brought parents, students, and staff members. And we presented a lot of these ideas, and then they received 12 dots, and they were able to put those dots by the items that they felt were very important, and that really helped us hone down where we were going to spend the money. And that's where all of these came from up here. in the learning loss section and in the other sections. So strategies for continuous and safe in-person learning is a whole nother section of the ESSER grant that has to do with how to maintain that safe environment for students to continue their in-person learning, anything from PPE to the MERV 13 filters to the extra nursing hours that we're putting into educating families and talking to families and contact tracing and all those kinds of things. And then we were also able to throw in some donation type ideas for instrument repair for our bands. Some of our bands haven't been able to buy instruments for 20, 30 years. And so we're excited to support the performing arts in that way, and also facilities upkeep, just to make sure that we have good facilities where we can teach safely. And so we put quite a bit of our resources in this area, and we're excited to use that. And then finally, there's this little catch-all section at the very end, and this is where we put our educational technology, which is pretty exciting, all the options that we have and the things that we got pretty good at during COVID, and then any other kinds of operational costs to just run a school or keep people employed. So these are all the areas of ESSER. And so this is all written up in a plan and ready to send to Placer County and then further on to the state. So we're excited about that. So earlier I mentioned the screener update. As you know, in September, we had vendors presenting to the curriculum and instruction team. And then we narrowed it down to 2 vendors that we felt were the most viable. And so during this month, I've actually been meeting with teachers and discussing, and they were piloting. And just this week, they chose their company. And that company, I'll come back to you with a contract and an idea, but this was IXL. And every appearance of being really pretty awesome to work with. And we're meeting next week to talk about exactly how we're going to roll this out and how many times per term that we're going to give it. And we're excited because it'll empower students to learn their own, where they need to work, learn where their own learning gaps are. And then there's a program, this includes the intervention program within it. So kids can do it on their own at home, or they can do it during intervention time, or however it works out. But they can take the power themselves and fill their gaps. And it also takes some of that onus off the teachers to always continually figure out how to intervene on these gaps. So we're excited about where that may go. So hopefully next month, we'll be back, or maybe in 2 weeks, we'll be back with a contract and with a very solid plan, and we'll be seeking your approval. So all of that said, do we have any questions?
Board members, any questions?
Thank you. Let's start with that. I was writing as fast as you were talking, so let me try to make sense of my notes. First one is, tell me a little bit more about the stakeholders. So I heard some, but I want to understand kind of who they are and what the makeup is of the stakeholders.
Absolutely. So at the beginning of the year, we reached out to all of our principals and said, we are going to have a stakeholder meeting on September 8th. And this is part of the LCAP progression too. So this is the same group. And we asked them to please make sure that you have parents and students and staff members that can be our stakeholder group and that can be representative of your sites. And so on that one evening there, they gave us the initial feedback, and then I've been visiting the different school site councils, DLAC, and also Diversify Your Narrative to run it past them, as many groups as I can.
What type of student perception data did you get, or did you get student perception data other than the Diversify Your Narrative group and the DLAC?
Yes, actually, this plan has to build on a lot of our other plans, which were built off of the student perception data. So yes, that all played into it. We went way back to surveys we started in the spring of 2020, and then the surveys from last year. And I had to tie each of these items to anything that we talked about in the expanded learning opportunity grant or in the LCAP. So it's all tied together and it's all tied in with our district goals. I had to show all of that.
For the grant,
For the ESSER, yes.
Then the screener that you mentioned, is this a so it says universal screener for academics, and then there's another screener.
Yeah, for socio.
SEL,
Yeah,
right.
it's a
So
little.
is the tool you're proposing, which tool are you proposing as the next steps?
So the one that we're working on is the academics one, and it is a lot of steps, because when you start to think about, okay, how are we giving it? Who are we giving it to? What are we doing with that information? What kind of information is helpful to us? How does it align to the state standards and to what we're teaching? There's just so much involved, and that's why we're meeting and discussing and voting and talking.
Going.
Yeah, please.
So the last presentation that came out showed us the CASP, PSATs, and grades.
Yes.
And so I am going to tell you what I would like to see, and then you're going to tell me why I'm.
Give it a try.
So what I'd like to see is our numbers of C, D, and F students. We went from what I recall where we learned to where the needle moved the most was we saw our C students move to D students, or D students move to failing, or failing students maybe missing. A and B students kind of stayed in those ranges. So what I would like to see is the strategies that are going to be used to move the needle of moving those students up to back where they were. Numbers by quarter by quarter, and what those numbers look like. The professional development goals that go along with doing that. The successes and challenges that you reach quarter by quarter from getting there or not getting there. And then how it will be monitored. What's wrong with my logic?
I don't see anything wrong with your logic.
Is it possible to do that?
Yes. And I would want to talk with you more. Are you talking about math grades?
Not
Or
necessarily.
all grades?
I think that, well, what was presented, I think, was math and English language.
Yes.
Or language arts.
Yes.
Right? So
Uh-huh.
I think those were the two areas that
Right.
can be.
Right. We can
measured the
certainly track the grades, like we just gave midterms last week, right? So those are grades that are posted. We can certainly bring that data back to you at the end of the month. The thing is, it changes so quickly, because we'll move quickly, but we could bring that, and then we could bring the December dates, and we could track through, the DNF rate. Is that, if that's what you're talking about?
Well, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that's where
It
we're going to
does.
see, that's where we saw the needle move the largest was in I remember,
Mhm.
Dr. Moore, is that right? Where we saw, because we didn't see much PSAT. We saw a reduction in number of students taking the PSAT, but we didn't see the scores go down significantly. CASP was kind of like marginal
Right.
changes, and then grades were actually where the biggest swing had taken place. So I'm wondering if that makes sense to kind of look at those on a quarter by quarter basis. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause the kids change grades and everything. so
Yeah,
I'm not
we
sure
should talk more and let me think about it. But the quarter is hard because it's such a short time period and it's temporary. It's a temporary posting, a snapshot of where you're at right there.
I know, but they're moving through it so fast.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I hear
mean,
you.
Once the quarter's over.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, these are things I think just to think about. Anyway, those are kind of
Yes.
what I would like to see. I don't know if
Yes.
that makes sense.
It does. It does. It's a lot to figure out and to think about and to plan because you asked for grades. It's okay. Grades, and then there were two or three other
So I think
things that.
the strategies to move the needle, kind of the
Mhm.
numbers of where they are by quarter or how we're seeing progress. Then those where you saw the most
Mhm.
success and where the challenges are and how we're going to tie professional development to those.
Yes.
And then what makes sense to monitor routinely for continuous improvement in the kind of the
Yeah.
grade.
Yeah. And we're hoping the screener plays a role in that, because the screener is a diagnostic
Will the
test.
students be, it'll be kind of a requirement to keep using those screeners, those academic screeners routinely? I mean, how's that going to be implemented?
Well, yes, it will be a requirement, because for instance, I'm just giving you a for instance because we're still tying this down, but it could be that we decide everyone in IM and IM1 and IM2 are taking it in January when they start the new term. And the beauty of the screener is that it starts you at a particular level and it adjusts. So if you're doing really well, it'll keep giving you harder ones and harder ones. And if you're struggling, it will adjust there too. And then the teacher gets a printout of maybe this student is struggling in balancing equations, something along those lines. So then there's actually a program that specifically works on that in this
Area.
program.
Yeah.
And so they can spend time on that at home, during intervention period, after school, whatever works.
Is it like the iReady kind of tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then give it again in April and you see, have you filled those gaps? So that should be something that we can track. It's just going to be a soft rollout. So I don't know how many kids, and we got to figure out what we're doing. And, anytime you give any kind of a test, it just takes some coordinating and managing and figuring out what works. And so,
Or do we start with the greatest area of need, the students with the greatest area of need, and focus on?
right. For English, it could be English 9 and 10. Like, for instance, we could just do freshmen and sophomores. IM1, IM2, English 9, English 10. I'm always thinking about, okay, how many do I need to get the next level discount? So if we do that, that gets us to the first level of 10% discount. I always like a good sale. So I was thinking along those lines, but we could go IM1, IM2, IM3. Once you get past English 9, then you have a lot of different ways that you can go in the English world of English with honors 10. And then you've got, AP laying. And so it gets a little harder as you get up in the higher levels of English to consistently give the screener, but it can be done.
And then what about credit recovery? Can you speak to the volume of students that need credit recovery now compared to 2018?
I don't know if I can compare it to 2018. Do we have that number?
I'm just trying to go pre-pandemic credit recovery.
We're doing that research right now, and we'll be bringing that back. So that's kind of part of the previous conversation. That is something that'll be coming forward along with a plan for addressing it.
Okay. I also saw, thank you. I also saw in here staffing for mental health and outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about that, what you're kind of thinking about.
Yeah, well, some of our sites don't have community liaisons. Some of them do and some of them don't. So that might be a place we would start. Some of them have college, not all of them have college and career techs, but also in the wellness centers, just more wellness staffers that can be available to serve more students, and especially throughout the summer.
Do you think it'll be targeted towards those who are needing more of the credit recovery and the kind of the grade, where we've seen the most grade drops?
Student need. And also what we found is our wellness staff are grant funded, and some of those grants are ending. So part of this funds will just extend the existing staff, and that's part of that line item is for that.
Well, I'm wondering how student achievement is tied to mental health maybe, and I don't know if we know that.
That's what we just heard from the prior presentation, how the student intervention programs, each of our schools are running intervention teams, and that's what they're aligning through our MTSS work. So that's why they kind of do an analysis for each student to see where their needs are, because it could be all of the above, or it could be just in one of the areas, academic, social, emotional, or other. And so that's what that team works with the student and the staff who support that student to identify what supports are needed. So it could be any or all for, depending on the student needs.
Thank you. And then there's one more, which I don't think you said anything about it. Is there specific outreach tied to graduation because of credit recovery needs? Are we seeing like a dip in graduation?
Graduation rate?
A graduation rate? And do we have any targeted plans for that, or is there a need for that?
I haven't looked into that. I'm not aware of a graduation dip, but go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Not yet. There has not been a dip because of AB 104 and the graduation requirement changes that were statewide. And that applies to this year's seniors as well. So that's something we're watching carefully, especially as it applies to next year's seniors. And that may be something that will come forward as we watch it and see if there's any concerns for those students. But right now, our plan is to help them make up those grades, accelerate their learning, as we've talked about. And those are the plans that we'll be bringing forward first and foremost. But as we watch that student group, we'll let you know if there are things that we need to do to adjust. But so far, last year's seniors had the benefit of the reduction in requirements, and this year's seniors also have that benefit. So we should be good for right now.
So even though there is a legal reduction exception, are we interested in trying to bridge that gap at all so that we can still accelerate students to meet the old requirements?
Yes. Yeah, we've worked with the counseling teams, and Ms. Judy Fisher is leading that, but our plan for all students is to meet our board expectations and the standard graduation rates. I don't have numbers right now on how many are going for a waiver, but we have a process to track, so we get a sense of how many of our students will need that, and we can follow up with you with some of that information.
Okay.
But the plan A is the 260 credits, what we would typically do, and that's what we're gearing up. That's what the schedules are for our students to get them to the traditional expectations, but we have that fallback plan if they need it.
It's kind of the safety net.
Okay, thanks. So I can put those questions that I have in an email. That would be helpful.
Great.
And
Yeah.
then again, I'm really, out of those things, I mean, I'm interested in all of it, but I'm going to be particularly picky about how professional development is tied to the learning loss gaps.
I'm excited to talk about that eventually too, because we are working very hard on a professional development plan for 3 years.
Because that's going to be something that's going to be beneficial forever, not just for now.
Yes.
So those are my questions. Thanks.
Any other board member? Who, besides yourself, who you work with on this team? Who all is working on this?
On the professional development
No,
plan?
on the expenditure plan, the expenditure plan.
Well, gosh, it started with all of cabinet. So all of, our superintendent, assistant superintendents, all of our executive directors, that's where we began. And then I worked with the business department. They helped me price out things. So I made a lot of appointments there. And then I have a department of 8 people that they all had input, and I had them look over it. And then since Judy Fisher and Dr. Moore have written so many of these, then they read my plan. I sent it to the county ahead of time because I said, hey, if I send it to you ahead of time, can you tell me if I'm on the right track? And then that way, I'm not going too far the wrong way. And then when I send it, it'll be done the right way. So I've already done that and got that feedback last week. And they said it was good.
No, I just think this is a lot of work. This is something that is super important. These are funds earmarked for educational purposes, some health purposes, and you and your team and the entire cabinet have done a wonderful job soliciting input out there from the various stakeholders, putting a plan and act together. Obviously, there's still questions in how all this ultimately gets implemented,
Right.
and there's an evolving
Now the
process
real
to it.
hard part starts.
That's right.
Right.
But I just, I want to thank you, Jennifer, and everybody on the cabinet, executive directors, principals that put work into this plan, and the input that was provided by teachers, counselors, nurses, parents, students, is all invaluable. This is new territory, and I think we're getting ahead of it, and I feel we'll be very successful in implementation of this plan. So thank you for
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you. Okay. I
All right.
think I'm passing this along.
I think that's it, or do we have more? That's it, okay. Item, and again, if you want to speak to an action item or an information matter, don't forget to fill out a public speaker form in the back. So we'll move on to item 4.4, which is curriculum review process. With our Ed Services, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, President Tagg. And I'd like to thank Jen Layton for her presentation. I do invite any parents or guardians who would like to talk about learning loss related to their student to reach out to my office. I'd be happy to speak with them to understand how the pandemic has affected their students, social, emotionally, academically, or otherwise. So that is an open invitation, and I have enjoyed those conversations. We have a variety of resources and would love to connect those to students.
Yeah, I may stop you for the public. Dr. Moore has met with parents. I know this for a fact. So anybody that would like to have a conversation with her, and one member of the public's raising her hand, just email Dr. Moore. Well, you can still have time to fill out
She's,
you got it?
she wants the form. She wants to speak to 4.3 from the form you have.
Okay, she put 4.3 and 4.4 both on there, so we were gonna have her speak at the end, but she can speak now if she'd like.
Yeah, since we have a minute, go ahead, you'll have,
I'm Michelle Derby, and we're talking about ESSER funds, correct?
yes.
Okay, so
Well,
that
this is really about learning loss, which
right,
deals
so
with the ESSER funds.
193 billion was given out, and so California alone, 193 billion, right? So you guys are saying, what can we use these ESSER funds for? Well, it specifically says what you can use them for: mental health and items. You know, oh, hold on, I wrote it down. Like masks and, you know, that soap stuff you guys use, and cleaning and sanitizing. So if you can't use it for anything else, why would we take that money? I'm proud of you guys for not taking them. I don't know if you guys took it already or not, but it's a quarterly thing that you take. And if you take it, you're obligated to do these things at the school, like vaccinate and mask our kids. And we've asked you guys not to do that. And you guys know that they're not effective. The VAERS data, I have October 1st numbers. If I had time, I will tell them all. If I do have time, I will explain what the numbers are, but there's already 20,000 deaths. And kids, their trials are not over yet. Even with pregnant women, it's still going on till 2024 and 25. So ESSER funds, I am asking you guys not to take those funds, because if you do, your hands are tied, and that's blood money, and our kids are on your hands if something happens to them, because ESSER funds is from the government and it's about corona relief. And I know this is a fact because I do my research. Please do not take that. If you want to take money, ask them if you can use an HVAC system, because that will kill the virus. And then you don't have to worry about all this other stupid protocol stuff that they're trying to do. An HVAC system will do plenty. I have a military family. I know exactly that viruses will never be isolated. So we have many viruses. There's going to be many variants, and walking around scared, then don't drive, honestly, because you have a better chance of dying in an accident than getting COVID. I had COVID, my kids had COVID, my parents had COVID. We're all fine. It's not that bad. This has got to stop. ESSER funds, don't do it.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, we'll move on to to 4.4 curriculum review process with Dr. Moore.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to share with the board an update on our curricular review and approval process, along with an example of the process as it's currently moving forward. We saw earlier this year a variety of roles that the board and the state have, and we know the state sets the content area standards, develops the framework that's a guide for us, and then as a board, you have the opportunity to approve the curriculum and our instructional materials, typically in the form of a textbook. So that is the process that we're going to focus on this evening, is the curriculum and textbook approval. What we've had until recently, until this month, are 3 separate processes. A process for a course approval, and then a process for the textbook adoption, and then we also have a digital materials adoption, which was really important last year as we had a variety of different digital tools that we use. But these processes being separate have not been as transparent or effective for our community and for getting this information out there. So what we've done is combine the first 2 in a more cohesive process. And that's what I wanted to share, how that works in action. So when our team writes a new course, and the team is largely teachers, and that is actually part of EdCode, where EdCode says the predominant influence and work of a curriculum and the course, the textbook selection is from the instructors themselves, the teachers. So when that happens, of course, we also include stakeholders. We'll be talking about what that will look like as well. The board approves a course before we've ever taught it. Once we start teaching it, we learn a lot in the process. And so we start teaching the course, and then we realize, wow, it would be great to use this also, and this too is a great resource. And what if we customize it this way? And so the course naturally shifts and changes, and there are other materials that we maybe didn't realize up front or didn't have on the list to start with. So that's a natural progression of teaching the course and updating it and learning in the process. So what we recommend is that the curriculum is a living document and would come to you for those significant changes as we do a regular review. If there are updates, we would go through a process to bring them back to you. And then we'd continue implementation, and then this could happen. So we have courses on the books that have been in place for over 20 years, but we need to review, and occasionally, if there are those significant changes, we'll bring them forward. So you heard me refer to our curriculum audit, which we have begun. It is an ongoing process. And so not only will we anticipate bringing to you new courses, but you will also see existing courses that are going through that as we review the revision process. So whether that's to include supplemental materials or just in general changes in the recommendations of the instruction and curriculum layout. So a little bit more granularly then, what does that look like and who all is involved? When a course is proposed, the school sites themselves have a chance to review it, and that includes department chairs. Well, the departments themselves, let's pick English. Okay, the English department would take a look and say, hey, we're proposing a course, and that would come to the department chairs and the school site council, which, as you know, includes parents, students, and staff members who are representative. We also bring it to the district-wide curriculum team. So the English team district-wide would take a look at it and say, yeah, we support this. Let's discuss it, because a course is a district course. It's not a school site course. And so that team goes through and has a lot of influence in that. And so you can see teachers are very strongly represented in these areas, but of course at the site, in the school site council, we have all stakeholders. There's an administrative review, both at the site level and through Ed Services. We check, is this aligned? Is it A through G? How does it fit in the pathways and the priorities that we have? And ultimately, it makes it to the SILT, the Continuous Improvement Leadership Team, that looks at all the courses. And this is a group that also includes district-wide staff, parents, and then we're going to be looking at adding students as well to this group to really look district-wide. Is this a course that we support moving forward? And you have a board representative on that, and that's Ms. Julie Hirota at this current time. That is a group that's gone through a few revisions. It didn't happen as much during the pandemic time, so we really didn't have a robust process, so we're revitalizing that. Jen Layton is leading that, and we are going to be formally launching the full program in January. So we are still going through the revision process. We're doing audits, but that group itself will be relaunched, as it were, in January. After all of those steps is when we would bring a course to you as a board for consideration. We have, for textbooks, there's always a 30-day window of time for all public comment and observations and review of the core materials. That would be the textbook adoption. Comments or questions at this point of the process and how we're updating it? Yes, please.
I'm not on silt. I think I was 4 years ago, but I don't know when I got appointed to that, but I've not participated in the last couple of years. So I'm happy to have that discussion again at some point, but I just wanted to clarify, because I heard that earlier today or yesterday that I was, and I was like, oh,
Did the reorg and assign committees?
I don't know.
We actually found it in the minutes. That's how we look. We just haven't had silt because.
Yeah, no, I heard that too, but I thought we eliminated the silt committee a couple of years ago. Anyway, I don't know. I'm looking at you like you would know the answer, Scott, but I don't.
That sounds familiar, but
I just wanted to make the note.
Yeah, it
of
had a name change of said, but it was the same role. And so, yeah, we checked the board minutes from the last reorg and that was still the current.
Is that when you
No.
did the appointments last December?
I think silt was not meeting.
That's
for
why we
time,
just haven't
for a
met
while,
yet.
right? Because I was the silt representative.
I was before you. It was me and Gary Johnson.
I don't
and my-
remember. I honestly don't remember.
You do?
I do not.
You do not?
I will back up here. But they're saying
Anyway,
it's in the minutes.
so that's what it says, but I just wanted to add that for
So
clarification.
when's the next
Thank you.
meeting of silt?
January.
Oh,
So we got
Yeah.
plenty of notice
There'll
on
be a
that
new
one.
person by then anyway.
will be a new person.
doing it over again.
All right. Sorry, I learned about it earlier today or yesterday. And
You want to give a silt report?
well, I feel like I've not done my job.
No, it's totally on us in our department because we just kind of put it on pause.
It's fine.
So it's being relaunched. That's the intended process. So I'd like to give you an example. It's another course that has been requested on ethnic studies. You had a question before we go to that.
Questions. So I had a couple of questions. When you refer to textbooks, are those all books? For example, like in math, you get a textbook. Biology, you get a textbook. But in English, you may read a number of different pieces of literature. Are those books considered textbooks under this definition in this process?
Great question. It depends on how it's used. And so that would be part of the recommendation. And in the course approval form, there's two places where instructional materials could be added. One is core, that would be the required foundational piece, and then supplemental. Depending on how it's used. So for example, the novels used in our district are usually supplemental or core, it depends, but really we're using the supplemental because we have a lot of student choice. And when that happens, then it's not everyone will read Romeo and Juliet as an example. Now that actually probably is core. It's actually put in the textbooks that we had adopted previously. So that's part of the review process that we'll need to do as we do the audit and look at what do we have on the document? Do we have our current resources? Is that what we're actually using? I was meeting with a group of teachers recently. They're saying, oh, I found this great resource. That's so great. And they're starting to share it. I'm like, wonderful. Is it on our document? Not yet. Okay, well, then we need to build that in as we're looking at our revision because we want to be super transparent. What is it that we're planning to use? So it's all in how it's used. In some districts, the novels are core because there's no textbook. And then is it all novels or choice or, so we have to figure that out and be really clear about it.
So the reason I bring that up is, one of my earliest meetings, we had a presentation I think that Becky did from West Park, and she talked about, and she gave us some books that the students were using. So that's where I was kind of trying to figure out, are those textbooks that are generally adopted as part of this process when there's substitutions and things like that, or is that a pilot? Are there pilot programs? Trying to understand if there's a line between textbooks, pieces of literature, supplemental. As you know, we just had a little bit of a uproar and kerfuffle over some of the health digital resources, which are covered, I guess, under the supplemental materials of this process. I'm just trying to figure out how all that fits, because I've never been through this process.
Right, and so our intent is to be as transparent as possible and to not have the surprises. So that's part of what we're trying to navigate, because this is new and it's not standard to have all the supplemental things on a document, but we're trying to be mindful and add that in. But you're right, like the health, we call it health curriculum, it's really our digital citizenship curriculum, which happened to be taught in a health class, wouldn't have been on any document in our past model, because it's not health curriculum. It's not, and it's not a graded curriculum, for, but it happened to be in this piece. So we're adding a layer of district-wide curriculum to still go through the process. And so we're updating the digital citizenship curriculum as an example, and we're also looking at the personal finance course. It's not an adopted course, but it's board policy, it's a graduation requirement, and it's been in this strange gray area. We're like, well, let's just be transparent, let's walk it through the process anyway.
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful, because I know it's been confusing for me to kind of figure that stuff out as having been a parent and kind of seeing what my kids go through, and being here and trying to figure out how all these things work. So when something gets piloted, if you go back to the previous slide that has the circular chart, if I'm a teacher and I'm teaching whatever and I want to try this item here, whether it be a textbook or a digital thing or whatever, where does that fit in? Are teachers allowed to bring in, say, okay, I'm going to pilot this so that we see how it works, and then we bring it back in one of these steps? What arrow or what circle would that type of stuff fall into?
Right, so we definitely want to give flexibility to our teachers. They need to be creating their own material, being current, being relevant for student learning. And so the rule of thumb that we're working on, and when I say we're looking at it as an admin team with principals. If an individual teacher wants to try something, go for it. Now, it's different if we're buying a lot of stuff. That would be a different review process. It's different if it's digital materials. We have some legal checks to make sure it's children's internet protection, and we're checking all the boxes. But let's say I found a resource, I want to try it out. They have that flexibility to try that out. It's at the point where it gets to a department level. So if we start sharing it and say, okay, wow, we all need to use this at the department, at that point we're saying we need to have a site review process, include department chairs, school site council, have a site review process to talk about, hey, this is something we're looking at doing department-wide. And then if it's actually something we're looking at doing district-wide, that's when it would hit our documents, because our documents are the district-wide courses. And so if we're saying this is a standard supplemental material that we're wanting to use district-wide in this course, we would have it on there and bring it forward for those updates.
All right, so then going back to the slide you had up, the horizontal arrow chart, did I hear you right in that we haven't had a specific cycle of review? You mentioned some courses might be 20 years old, but we're transitioning to a review where we'll have a program review or a curriculum review on specific intervals?
Yes, and we have a lot of courses and a lot of elective courses. So I'm not ready to tell you what that interval is yet, but yes, that's the intention of let's have a review, let's check, let's keep our content groups active. We haven't had, for example, some years we have some groups active and others not active. So that's something that we're looking at is that the process, or do we want to have all of them active? And because there's a lot to talk about in curriculum, assessment, instructional materials, best practices. So looking at how do we keep those teams active and continuing this cycle of review.
Okay, and then hopefully the final question, at least for this part, and I apologize because I just don't know anything about it. Course review, we've talked about that. Talked about this cycle that we'll get to. What about like programs? Like if you were going to review an IM1, IM1's part of a string of several math courses, and then you have the courses that maybe don't have the IM initials, other math courses. Do we do sort of program level reviews at certain times where we say, okay, let's look at all of our math holistically and then zero in on a class? Or is it typically we look at the classes and then we zoom back out to the program? How does that work?
So you used math, so let's use math as an example. We have a math curricular lead team, and they're the ones that help us review. So usually they're representatives from all of the schools. They're department chairs or lead teachers in a variety of ways, and they help to make that decision. So it's not an IM1 committee, it's a math committee. And they help to identify those priorities, say, okay, it's time for example, we had a new textbook. Part of that was because the textbook that had been selected, the adoption was up, and it's consumable. So we needed to make a decision of what are we going to use next as our core materials. And so that is a program-wide decision, at least for the instructional materials. And that process we talked about before, but that's been going on for over a year. And they're in that process of making recommendations, and that those materials will be for all three, IM 1, 2, 3, the course sequence. And so that will often trigger it is the adoption cycle, because they are a sequence. I'll give an example of history. It's not necessary. If you have world history and US history and econ, it could be the same publisher, but it doesn't have to be. And so then it could just be a priority, whether the adoption triggers it or other staff recommendations.
Thanks, I appreciate it, because this is something I've been trying to wrap my arms around. And just a side note, a small version of this would be great as an onboarding, talking about our onboarding process. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I've got a few. So if we have a course that does not have a current textbook, and we have to adopt the curriculum itself, because if we don't adopt one of the textbooks that the state approves, then we have to adopt, the board has to adopt the curriculum itself. Would that go through the same process that you have here?
That would be the intent.
Okay. I would suggest in the SILT review, we ought to have at least 2 board members in there, and I think a bunch of parents as well. I know typically it's been predominantly teacher heavy and not as much parent heavy, and I understand, it's sometimes difficult to get individuals to come. I don't think it's going to be in the near future. But one of the things that does concern me, and I want to go back, getting away from this for a minute, go back to something you mentioned about instructional materials. So if I as a teacher think, hey, here's this thing I want to talk about in class, I can just bring it up in class. It doesn't need to be approved. No one needs to look at it. I can just teach it. And it's only when I want to share it with my colleagues that I have to let them know what it is or get it approved. That concerns me a lot.
So think about US history, or let's say a government class, and it happens to be an election year, right? So there's a current event, an article in the Sacramento Bee that they want to reference. That is allowable. We have board policy guidelines of what's appropriate in a classroom, right? So we have the general policy guidelines that they should be following, and we have a curricular outline, the scope and sequence that's board approved. But if we're teaching, name your subject of political science, and we're teaching this topic and it's relevant and there's a current event article that I want to bring in, we allow that professional discretion by our staff members.
And I get that, although I think that should be the exception, not the rule. I mean, candidly, I think sticking with the curriculum as outlined is really, I get current events and I get things like that. Anyway, I think we need to get back and have more board and parent involvement, and whether that happens at SILT or somewhere before, I think it's really critical that we get a lot of daylight on what's going on. I mean, in some classes, again, we may look at not adopting a textbook intentionally and saying, let's come up with our own curriculum. I'll float this idea, and again, I don't intend anyone to act on it, but I would love to never pay another, textbook mafia price for, $150, $160 for a chemistry book. I think is obscene. I think we could have, our own teachers come up with and create curriculum that we could adopt, that we could then also sell to other school districts at a very reduced price and cover the cost of having those teachers that made that book. and again, that's another topic for another day. But this is going to be, I think, one of the areas where we're going to get a lot of scrutiny, rightly so. And so anyway, that's I have more comments later, but it does concern me that materials don't have to be overseen by anybody, that an individual teacher can just bring in. And I get the current events, I get that stuff, I understand that. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. Let's put a pin in that one and we'll come back to it.
Studies curriculum review.
No, I think I just wanted to add on to what Scott was saying.
We will come back.
Yeah.
We'll come back for final comments.
Okay.
But let's just do the questions right now, and then the public will speak, and then we can make, that's okay. Go.
Okay. So I'd like to give an example of this related to ethnic studies as the sample, because that's a curriculum that we've been looking at updating. And so to start, I'll just a quick update. You may hear of the FAIR Act. It's been around since 2012 when it went into effect. It was approved in 2011. That's our law that we have to work with in our curriculum. But the FAIR organization has recently come to our attention in a couple of board meetings, and a question raised here of, okay, we're hearing about FAIR curriculum. How does that compare? So just wanted to draw a connection that they're actually separate, nonpartisan organization, and they have developed lessons related to what they consider ethnic studies that they call FAIR Stories. There's two different sites. There's the FAIR organization and then their offshoot site with the lesson collection that they're developing. And working with our ethnic study teachers, we have a subset of them helping with the curriculum review. Pause for a moment. It's a little hard to talk with all the distractions in the audience. So we have the curriculum.
Hang on, Ms. Moore. Please let her. But I can hear, sir. I can hear you too. So I haven't said anything, but please. But can you? We can, but I hear the noise too, sir. You. Ma'am, did you put in a comment? You'll have a chance if you put a comment. Well, we have to stop if we keep hearing the noise over. Will you stop though, please? Stack, okay, accordingly, and get on with the report, and we can do public comment. Okay, Dr. Moore. I'm good if you're good.
So you have our curricular outcomes in our adopted materials. They have curriculum as well, outlines or objectives that you can see that we agree with largely. There were a lot of great things looking at some historical components, accomplishments, foundations. That's what it's stated. Both curricula very clearly outline that they're customizable to the local populations. Again, this is straight from their website and connections that we've been able to make, centered on student-based inquiry and multiple perspectives with primary sources, and balanced. You can see what they're looking at from a balance, and then our curriculum provides a variety of resources, research tasks, student voice, and perspective as well. So that's kind of the outline or stated objectives. When it comes to the actual curriculum review, we do not have access to FAIR curriculum because it has not yet been built. They do have a collection of some lessons, and they're in the process. I had a chance to interview one of the founding curricular developers, and we had a very nice conversation to understand where they're at, and they're expecting in the next couple of months to have more. But he did agree there's just a few lessons and a lot of topics that they plan to write to. But it's not what we would consider a curriculum with a scope and sequence that builds upon each other. And in fact, their lessons span the range from elementary to high school. So even what they have is it's not what we would take as a package to use at this point, although that's something that they're planning to develop. So theirs is like individual lessons, very focused on history, And I mentioned that. So what we do is a little bit different. Obviously, ours are focused on high school standards for our grade level of students. It's interdisciplinary, so it brings in a lot of reading and writing standards as well as historical components. We use a lot of case studies. And instead of simply studying a time or an event or a person in history, the case study approach allows it to be historical all the way to current. So how does this affect current society? And that's a little bit of a different approach than what we're seeing so far in the individual lessons. We definitely have a lot of student voice and perspective included, project-based learning, teamwork, and research to bring in those perspectives. And what's also interesting and worthy of note, our program evaluation for students is heavily influenced by the International Baccalaureate programs and rubrics. So as a global program for IB, those rubrics are very applicable, and so our teachers use those in working with students and referencing that. We have standards here just as a reminder that as we build our curriculum and doing our due diligence, we reference not only content historical standards or others that may be applicable, but also the literacy standards that span all subject areas. So you need to read it, it's certainly there for you, but the reading, writing, listening, and speaking standards are heavily influenced and evident in our curriculum and in our classrooms. So interestingly, the FAIR lessons don't have standards like national or state standards referenced. It is something they're planning to do. The director mentioned it was a priority. They have created some of their own standards that they call ethnic studies standards. But when we were trying to align the content, many of the historical events would connect with 8th grade history, some with 11th grade history. And so certainly our students are getting the history. And so we just wanted to remind you that our ethnic studies is not intended to be a history class, because we do have those and cover those standards. So it has a different approach in referencing the history and the case studies and bringing it forward. So that's just a little bit of where we are. We're just in the initial part of the review. We're gathering the supplemental resources. We're looking at revising, and we do anticipate it being a significant review, and would be bringing that forward to in the spring for your consideration, going through all the steps in the cycle that we've talked about.
Board members, any questions? Comment?
Just a couple more questions. How do we assure that we have consistency from classroom to classroom and from site to site? We have multiple locations. And the reason I ask is I get starkly different descriptions of courses when I speak to students. And they can be literally night and day different, sometime within the same school, and oftentimes between sites. And I find myself at a loss when they're asking me why. And so how do we, once we've adopted a curriculum, whether it's ethnic studies or anything else, how do we monitor it to ensure that we're providing consistency? Because if I have a kid of mine that goes to West Park and a kid of mine that goes to Oakmont, how do I know they're getting the same?
Great question. The educational researcher, Richard Elmore, says that there's more variance between teachers than between schools, is just often the case if we didn't have a process for monitoring and aligning and bringing consistency. And so like teachers next door to each other are often more different than just school to school. And so it's a whole process of walking classrooms, being present, having the curricular teams share and talk and discuss and plan. What I found, for example, with ethnic studies is when we have a couple of schools have 2 teachers, and they're planning and very consistent between them at the school. But then they just don't have as much time, partly because our bell schedules don't allow the collaboration time consistent across the district. So that's one of the reasons. We have a lot of wonderful and hardworking teachers that will often put in the time extra. So for example, our ethnic studies teachers are one of the more cohesive groups historically that I've seen, that they meet after school via Zoom across the district on their own time to plan. But there's going to be differences in style and approach based on teacher profession and what works for them. But it is interesting to see is when they plan together, you find more consistency. So I've gone to 2 teachers at one school and it's the same lesson. I go in here, 20 minutes later, I'm over here and I can see, oh, yep, they're just picking up at the same place because they've planned together, and that's one of the best practices. And so that professional learning time that we provide the sites is really instrumental in bringing consistency and cohesiveness, but then also the administrator walks in the classroom to monitor, helps at a site level. And then Jen Layton, Dr. Dobson, myself, others from Ed Services walk school to school to help. But it takes the whole team. So this is an ongoing conversation, because not only are we walking, but what are we doing when we walk? What are we looking for? And that's that ongoing conversation with our administrators to build our own consistency in what we're looking for.
And then slightly tangential, but you brought it up, so I'll bring it up. In the professional learning training, call it PLT, I think, right? PLT.
Yes.
Do we have a process for continuity across the district, or like we have curriculum approval for the students? Do we have anything like that for how we're teaching our teachers to teach the curriculum?
Right. I'm going to defer to Jen Layton and her coming back, because the team in Ed Services has been working on a professional learning plan. And so that is forthcoming. From what I've learned is when we implemented PLT, we had a common training, we had implementation, we worked with the DeFors, and really rolling out what does professional collaboration time look like, sound like, feel like. But it's been a while since then. And so with that, we've maybe drifted off into different ways, and each school may be a bit different, and each department at that school might be in a different place. So it's something that's on the radar, but I wouldn't say right now we have that fixed, but we have a plan for how are we supporting all teachers with professional learning, and it's on our radar, and we need to talk more with the principals of what are we doing, because right now it's the principals have been leading that at their sites. In times of pandemic and COVID, our teachers really came together. How do we do this? Let's survive. Let's be our support for each other. And that has been strong. And now we're looking at, okay, what is that new healthy routine that we support?
So yeah, I definitely drifted us off the topic, but that's something I'd like to learn more about as we go forward for a future discussion.
Any other questions? Yes, our student board member.
Why is ethnic studies not considered like a history class?
That's a great question. Right now, as far as I understand, it is required, well, history has specific standards. And so we have 3 grade levels of history required for graduation at the state level: world history or world studies, US history, and then the Gov Econ. So those 3 years are required. The ethnic studies is not required. And if we wanted it to meet one of those years, it would change substantially. So that's why it's an elective class, because it's not meeting those standards, the history standards per se. It's not designed to. And then, as you may know, the governor has recently signed legislation that will give us some time before ethnic studies becomes a requirement. But also in that legislation, it requires ethnic studies to be its own focus course, versus we had thought in some of the iterations of the law that it might have been an overlay on world history or kind of embedded in, and the way the law changed over the time of its conversation and before it got implemented, it requires it to be its own focus course of at least a semester. So we have a 1-year equivalent course right now as an elective. Those will be ongoing conversations. We don't need to have that one today. That's coming. But those are some of the reasons why it wasn't created as a history course itself.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll go to public comment. We have 11 public comments. A minute 30 on the clock for each speaker. And start with Logan Crabtree. followed by Jonathan Zackerson.
Hi, my name is Logan Crabtree, and I'm a freshman at Granite Bay High School. I want to share my concern for the mandated ethnic studies requirement that I will have to complete before I graduate. If you choose to use curriculum provided by the DOE that my school is going to teach my peers, then I am an oppressor because I am white. Why would you want to create more division in schools? We have enough. A teacher at Cooley Middle School taught me that our history is ripe with freedom and opportunity. A history filled with continued strides towards the principles and ideals within the Declaration of Independence. Teaching DOE curriculum is a direct contradiction to the efforts of the men and women who fought and died for this country, going all the way back to the field in Massachusetts. Teaching and learning DOE curriculum shows that we are not appreciative of the country our founders built for us. A lack of appreciation is a sign of entitlement. We have enough of this today. It is exactly what Alexander Hamilton and General Washington warned us about in Washington's farewell address. Teaching DOE curriculum will push me away from my peers, not bringing us closer together. I've read the ethnic studies curriculum and sample lesson plans, and together with my family, we will not participate and accept these teachings. We don't value its words. I ask you to please choose a curriculum that doesn't fee on ripping my generation apart. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Zackerson, followed by Leslie Jameson.
Thank you. I just want to explain, just to describe my experience. So I have a daughter that's a freshman at West Park. Freshman, she came in, was assigned the ethnic studies course, not selected, just for the record. And then, I've had the book from there. There are some things in there I think are good and should be taught. But the book that we have right now definitely comes with a political slant. Coming from, if you're part of a particular political affiliation or ideas, you're racist, even though a majority of the country may believe in those things. So I do think it is time that we revisit the selection that we have for our ethnic studies curriculum. So thanks.
Leslie Jameson, followed by Dale Mortensen.
I'm Leslie Jameson. That book is $140 too, by the way. I was tempted to buy it, but I didn't. Anyway, but I did buy this one. This is the other book, currently with Roseville Ethnic Studies. So I'm with FAIR. I've been with them since March. They've been going since about February. They started the curriculum in October. It just came out in September. It still is under development, but it is going to be robust. It's going to be comprehensive. It's already going that direction. As in my time with FAIR, I've been very impressed. And like Jonathan was saying, what's currently there is slanted. I've gone through it. I've gone through diversity trainings. I've looked at this different stuff, and especially with it going to be required, there needs to be more balance. There's going to be problems when it comes to that time when it has to be looked over by parents, and FAIR offers that. FAIR is nonpartisan. They are very committed to that. So it's going to include more people, that 70 to 80% that I referred to before. It looks at our common humanity, and we're not against ethnic studies. It wants the ethnic studies, but it wants it more so that, the Logan can feel welcome there, the brown, the black, the white passing, the white adjacent, whatever it is, like they can all be there. They can be talking about it. They can have their common humanity. They can look at the bad and the good and everything in between. So I encourage you to continue strongly looking at it. It is very good and continue to be even better and better.
Thank you, Leslie. Dale Mortensen, followed by Logan. We already did.
Good evening.
Marla Francis.
Dale Mortensen. I'm a 25-year teacher here in the district. I had 4 of my 5 children, had the privilege to go through this wonderful district as well. I thank the board for a lot of bold decisions and brave decisions you've had to make. I'm here to talk about the curriculum in terms of the ethnic studies. FAIR stands for Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. I am a member of that. I have been a member since February. I'm not part of the curriculum building team. It is an organization that looks to our common humanity, pulls us in. That's students. It brings us together, meaning it has centripetal forces that bring us together as opposed to centrifugal forces that pull us apart. It focuses on what we have in common together as humans, as opposed to our differences and doing any type of labeling at all. We all, as humans, have some things we struggle with. We are looking at some of those tonight with our students. They were here, these brave students, and they're struggling with things. The last thing they need is being heaped society's woes and society's ills or past problems upon them. Again, the FAIR curriculum is one that focuses on our common humanity, and I'd like to help you if I can in any way with that. Okay, I offer myself up in any way of you looking at the curriculum, and I thank you
Dale.
again.
Appreciate it. Marla Franz. Passing, okay. Justin Mole.
Hi, a little bit about myself. I'm married to a Hispanic woman. About half the people on my block are in interracial relationships. And if you talk to all of us, there's one thing that we have in common. Every single one of us despise the idea, the type of ideologies that divide us, that pit one race against another, or say that one race is a victim just based on the color of your skin, and another race is an oppressor based on the color of your skin. What would Martin Luther King say about those type of ideologies? And you know, our kids, they all play together on the court, and they don't care what race or gender. I mean, they just, you know, they're happy to play together. And FAIR has that type of outlook of we're all human beings. We just all are people, and it has that type of approach versus pitting people one against the other. So I just implore you to take a close look at FAIR. There's a lot of great information, and I support it.
Thank you, Justin. Karen Cometh, followed by Michelle Darby.
Good evening. My name is Karen Combest. I have a daughter at Oakmont. The curriculum review process that was covered, thank you for that. I think that's the first time I've ever seen it described at all. So very enlightening. And I think there's a couple things that I'm walking away tonight with. One of those is that I think it's been at least 4 years since SILT met. So I know you have your work cut out for you, Dr. Moore, and I would not want your job right now. I hope you like wine. Actually, I do know you like wine, so hopefully you have a bottle at home. But I think one of the things that concerns me most is that a teacher can bring in anything to teach our students without review, without oversight. And I think we've seen some of that this year. And I know from my perspective, teachers are so important. Now I know they're really, really important. And aside from stalking my daughter's Google Classroom, her backpack, and asking her to tell me things, which parents of teenagers know they're not telling you everything, there's no way for me to feel confident that I know what is being taught to my student. And I should feel that, especially here at Roseville Joint. So I ask for transparency. I ask for a really robust review process that does check and balance to make sure that we have the appropriate teaching for our students. So thank you for taking that on.
Thank you, Karen. Maria Sisto, followed by Jennifer Santry.
There. I'm Maria. I have a daughter at West Park. And I just wanted to, yes, piggyback on what Scott was saying as a parent and actually as what Karen was saying too, about the whole process that was just described to us about what you were just teaching us. Basically, I do have a lot of concerns. I have been a teacher for 17 years. I'm actually not teaching currently, but as a teacher, you do have a lot of leeway to bring things into the classroom. And with that, you have a lot of, let's just say, power in a way to bring positive influence and the possibility of bringing in some negative influence. And I was just reminded when she was talking about that the teacher that brought the Antifa stuff into his classroom at California High School, Sacramento, what was it called? There you go. Intercom, yeah. And just thinking if you don't have to run it by anybody else, and if it's just an individual teacher doing his individual thing, that's a little scary. So I just wanted to bring that up again and just, I don't know how you check and balance that kind of stuff, but that's how, when he's influencing hundreds of kids over the years, it's just a little frightening. So I just wanted to bring that up again, just throwing that out there. And I want to thank you, Scott, for saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Santry. And then Joseph Hops.
Hi, Jennifer Santry. I'm going to start with the ethnic studies class, not because I really want to talk about it, but I wrote down a quote that one of the students said in one of the meetings a few weeks back, and she said that the ethnic studies class teaches them how to understand their own privilege. So if that's what we're trying to accomplish, that's what she expressed, and she was for the class. Regarding the curriculum review, I did have time to talk to Dr. Moore. I spoke with Ms. Guzman about some of the concerns that I had, and one thing that I keep questioning is the approach. It's really up to the teacher, so they can check off the box saying yes, we're using this textbook, and yes, we're following this curriculum, but the approach is wide open. And I've discussed with you before about the math program at West Park and how their approach is really quite different than any of the other schools. So that definitely needs to have some attention brought to it. I know that Dr. Moore has her work cut out for her and has a lot to do. Also, the supplemental materials, we talked about that before, the habitudes and the global digital citizenship. They don't have to go through that formal process, which also leaves that wide open to interpretation. I know I have 1 second, but one last thing is the textbooks. It's really hard to know what our kids are learning when we don't have hard copies of the textbooks and we have to go into the school to review any course material.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And Joseph.
I want to thank Logan because honestly, he has a lot of guts standing up here. I know that a lot of people don't, stand up here and want to talk about that kind of stuff. I might have to say it, but I kind of have to agree. It's going to be a little hard to teach students to want to be equal and want to be inclusive and want to like another person just by taking a class. I think it isn't just, I think you need to do more than just taking the class. I think we need to incorporate this into our homes. It's okay to be some other color. I don't really care. I mean, I don't care. And I don't think everything has to be about race, but I do think we need to put it on the table. I think it's important, but I don't think it is the biggest thing in the world that we need to talk about in our education system. We have a lot of problems with our education system, and yes, race is a problem, and there are other problems, but right now I would have to put that on hold and look at the other issues at hand.
Yep. Yep. Joseph, what school do you go to? What school do you go to? Oh, you're former. Thanks for coming out, and Logan, thank you for coming out and speaking your mind too as a student. All the public, of course. So that will end our public comment on this information item. Bring it back to the board for some comments. Elizabeth, would you like to start us off with any comments? You don't necessarily have to, but I'll give you a chance to talk on this issue if you would like. On the whole, the curriculum review, ethnic studies course from a student board member's perspective. No comment, okay. That's fair. Board members, comments?
I need to make this a little bit taller. Good. I just wanted to thank Dr. Moore for the presentation. Same as Pete, it's new for us, so I appreciate how thorough you are. I think it was your suggestion of having 2 board members and parents, or was that Scott's suggestion? So I agree with that. I just feel like it really needs to be closely examined. It's been something that's brought to my attention since before I was even a board member. And so when something is continuously brought up, it deserves a really close examination. It would be no different if people were continuously reaching out to me about pottery class or art class, whatever the class is, something is going on that's very concerning. And I don't know quite what that is yet, just that it requires close examination. And what's the timeline again, if you could remind us? I think you said 2024. What year does the ethnic studies become required?
It will not be required until graduation of 2030. So no students in our system right now would have to take it. It goes into effect in the year of 25, 26 for those freshmen who would graduate in 2030.
That's all.
Thanks. Just a couple things. First, thank you very much for the presentation. Very helpful to understand what we were doing and what we will be doing. And I think that it's really important that we continue to involve parents and involve all of our community stakeholders and be transparent in everything that we do. I just want to talk about the board's role, because I know that we've been told a lot by people what our roles are and what our roles are not. Sometimes people get really confused on what we should and what we shouldn't be doing. And we saw that just recently in the Rockland School District, where board members were, or the board as a whole was vilified by some because they wanted to review curriculum and textbooks, which we've just been told is our role. And I think it's really important as we get these presentations that you help us understand our role, but we also help inform the community of what our role is, because there is a clear role for those of us who represent the community to be involved in these decisions. And it was mentioned that there's a clear role for the parents. I was really dismayed, and I was trying to remember who made this quote, and I was trying to find it on Facebook on my computer, but I didn't realize we're filtered on our internet here, so I couldn't get on Facebook. really has lowered my productivity during meetings. But anyway, that being aside, there was recently a government official that at our state or federal level that said parents shouldn't have any role in the curriculum and making decisions on what students should be learning. And I think what you've heard here from our staff is we disagree with that. We believe that the parents should be involved, and that's why we have had a process, and we're creating a more robust process that's looks like it's going to be more transparent, more regular, and more involved. And I've already heard from at least a couple of my colleagues that we'd even like to increase the number of us that sit on the SILT committee. I'm not sure what SILT stands for, but that's fine. I don't need to know all the acronyms. That we get more involved and we continue to look at what's being done. Personally, my concerns are that we find standardization from class to class and from site to site. I know we can't always do that. I do believe that it is important to take real life examples and put them into the material and the lecture so that kids can make connections between the subject matter and what's happening in the world and in their life. But I think we also have to be very cognizant of the fact that that can't go too far where someone can just decide they're going to bring their whole new way of bringing things to their students, because that can cause inconsistency in learning. We need to make sure we're providing the same opportunity for education to all of our students, no matter what site they're in, no matter what teacher they happen to get by luck of the draw. They should all receive the same opportunity for learning. And I think that I'm going to be very interested in talking about how we train the trainers. How do we help our teachers deliver in a consistent way that is in concert with the curriculum that we either have adopted or will ultimately adopt as we're going forward? Because as I talk to teachers, and I've had the incredible opportunity of talking to so many teachers at our different sites one-on-one, and I really like to actually get them off-site, go have coffee or go do somewhere where we can talk a little less structured, and hearing how differently messages come across and what you should do or shouldn't do or can do or must do, it's a little loosey-goosey between sites. So I just personally, I hope that we continue to streamline our process, uniform our process, and relook at all these things so that we can make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of the kids. And I know that sometimes we lose sight of that, but all of this should be geared to what opportunities are we giving to all of our students at all of our sites. It doesn't matter if you go to Antelope or Adelante or West Park or Oakmont, you should be all having the same opportunity for learning and the same opportunity to express yourself. And I'll leave it at that for now. I think as we get more into the curriculum development, as we start reviewing things, I'll probably have a lot of comments on how we do that. But I'm just glad that we're going down that road. And again, thank you, Dr. Moore, for the team leadership you're providing in getting all this done, because I know you're not doing it all yourself. We'd love to give you all the credit, but we know there's a bunch of other people helping. Thanks.
Just for reference for those of you who are interested, because ethnic studies comes up quite a bit, the California Department of Education has the ethnic studies model curriculum on their website, so it goes into what the state says is the curriculum requirements, and there's a lot in there, but it does give an introduction overview and some guidance on how to do that. And I think everybody's here, including, I think, my fellow board members, because we came here to do what's best for kids. And I think everybody in this room wants to do what's best for kids. We just all have maybe a little bit different approach. And I think we probably would all come to an agreement that bringing passion and creativity into the classroom is encouraged for teachers, because that's our kids really can get a lot out of that. And I know that my son likes the teachers that really bring a lot of passion to the subject. You know, that being said, we I don't want a divisive classroom. I want my son and I want all the kids challenged, and I want them to really think. And I also think conflict can be healthy, but it can't be divisive. And so I want our board to commit to, some kind of standards as we move into curriculum review of thinking about these. How do we challenge the students, but without creating a divisive classroom? And how do we allow them to think creatively? And I think, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to our students, and we have a responsibility that they have a good curriculum and that our teachers do it well, and we support really strong curriculum, strong education. And again, that being said, we've got to figure out ways to take the divisiveness out of it. And I think the review process looks good, and I look forward to those steps. And I think it's important to let the students explore their own perspectives as well. So as we move forward, I'd like to challenge our board to take on those responsibilities and how we look at curriculum and how we create more opportunities for parents to be part of that process, for students to be a part of that process, and how we can bring people with different perspectives into that process, because ultimately the different perspectives that we bring in is going to create a better outcome for everybody, with a lot of different ways to look at things and to challenge ideas. So maybe we haven't been doing that in the past, or maybe we haven't been doing it as well. So thank you, Dr. Moore. It's a really, it's the most important subject, is the curriculum, right? So it's going to be a tough journey, but I look forward to going on it. So thanks.
Well, thank you, Julie. It's an interesting process, because for the last year and a half, we've been dealing with everything related to COVID, doing our best to get students just back in the classroom to learn, distance learning, and all along, of course, along comes ethnic studies, racial strife, critical race theory, and it's sort of hanging over us as we deal with COVID and making sure we take care of our kids. And I would concur with my colleague. I mean, we're all up here because we care about kids and students in this district. We all have had kids in this district. Mine has graduated. She got, I think, a very good education here. With school boards, inherently, you come onto a school board, right? You get elected to the school board, and then you get this funnel, this fire hose of stuff that comes at you that you need to learn. And one of those is curriculum. And I sat on that SILT committee, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. It's a lot of curriculum coming by, and you're learning the process, you're learning what's going on, and it all seems pretty good stuff, right? I mean, this is what we're teaching in math, proposing a new course here, a new course there. You have faith and trust in your teachers that they're doing the right thing, they're teaching the right course. And this district has some great teachers. And then we have some change in administration, and the thing that what I have the most confidence in our decision, bringing on and promoting our new superintendent, Mr. Becker, and his team that he's put together to sort this out. And as Pete mentioned, our role as the board is oversight, and we got a very good, and I appreciate Dr. Moore, the sort of the outline of what the curriculum approval process looks like, what the text approval process looks like. We approve new courses all the time over the years here. We approve new text, but it's changing dynamics, especially with this issue. It deserves the maximum attention so that we're getting it right. And I agree with other board members' comments here. I am completely opposed to things that make it divisive. We already have enough divisive issues going on in our country that we cannot contend to have more of these divisive issues. Ethnic study, I've sat in on that. I committed to sitting in through ethnic studies courses, and I'm going to continue to do that and evaluate. The sense of an ethnic studies course, learning who you are and cultures and what makes you tick, I don't see anything wrong with that. But when you start crossing over into this, what I hear and hear about, you know, putting people in places of white privilege versus this side or that side. That's where I think the divisiveness really starts hitting, and I think it's a fine line. I will say the course I sat through, and again, I sat through one period and met with the teacher, and I absolutely don't think there's subversive energy happening in class, and you could see the relationship between a group, a diverse student body in this class, learning about themselves, learning about other cultures. I think we do need to open our minds, and it's okay for students to open their minds. I also think that we don't give our kids enough credit because they're thinkers, and us as parents have a responsibility. And I know all of you are ones that have those conversations with your kids. That's what has to continue to happen. It can't just be up to our school district, our teacher. It's our responsibility too as parents. And I know, I'm guessing everybody in this room feels the same way. And unfortunately, in our society, we don't always see that. And we're trying to help, you know. So I just think it's definitely a lot to take in. I think we have a plan, a process to this. This was one of those steps. I do have to thank my colleague Pete for bringing this up to me about because he hasn't been through this curriculum text proposal. I think this was a great way to start this dialogue, and I've asked Dr. Moore to do a deep dive into all this. She continues to do that with her staff. So I think we're very open. We always have. This board is probably as much committed to hearing what parents have to say. Any board, I wouldn't say any board out there, but we're very committed to listening to our parents. But we also know, and I know, we have a fabulous district that cares and is doing the right thing, and will continue to do the right thing and work through these issues. And I appreciate you continuing to look at this subject and give us the overall feedback, and we'll continue to have discussions. So, thank you, Dr. Moore.
Well, in light of the hour, it's 9:45. I'm just going to echo many of the comments and just say I appreciate you saying them. I adopt them as if I said many of them myself. Dr. Moore, thank you very much. You know, it just hit me, and this has nothing to do with ethnic studies, but the person with the most experience in the cabinet sitting right here has the least amount of gray hair. That's Joe. Joe has the most experience as an assistant superintendent, yet he's got the least amount of gray hair. Anyway, there more to come, and thank you for bringing that to us, and we'll talk about this more later. Thank you.
Move on from information matters into our consent agenda. Anybody from the board, all matters under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion with a roll call. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless the board, audience, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Board members, are there any items you wish to remove for discussion?
Just the one I mentioned earlier, the motivated behavior policy.
Motivated behavior policy, okay. Motivated behavior policy. This is an opportunity for the public too, if they wish the board to have specific discussion on a consent agenda. Is there an item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Do we have a motion? A motion by Mr. Constant, second by Ms. Huber. Barbara, will you take the roll?
Yes.
Ms. Hirota, sorry.
Constant?
Yes.
Heidi Hall?
Yes.
Julie Hirota?
Yes.
Scott Huber?
Yes.
And Andrew Tagg?
Yes. Motion, consent agenda approved 5-0. We'll move on to action item 6. And we can start with the board policy of motivated behavior policy, which is
5145.9.
5145.5.9. Mr. Constant, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to start off. I sort of gave a summary earlier, so I won't belabor it. Just that there's a lot of strikeouts. portion in yellow is the specific language required in order for us to meet the requirements of our federal program review, which is very important that we are able to pass that. What you'll notice is staff did a great job of going through and getting rid of all the superfluous, unnecessary language and really boiling it down to just what it needs to be. The policy committee felt that this is exactly the way we should be going, and I just knew that some of you also had some interest in it, so I just want to make sure you had the opportunity to discuss it, not just push it through consent.
Okay, any questions?
No, thanks for taking that new format and making it very, it's so helpful.
Well,
Trying to decipher. who's
those thanks
saying
are for staff, not for us, because they did that.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. All right. We have any other questions
No, I have a comment.
or
actually.
comments?
These policies apply to everybody. They apply to teachers, they apply to parents, they apply to staff, they apply to students, they apply to everybody. And so I think these are the places where we can look to when for example, when individuals say, hey, we have some divisive behavior going on. It doesn't matter who's creating divisive behavior. These are the policies that we can utilize to stamp that behavior out. So, I just, the policies apply to everyone.
So, with that, I'd like to make a motion for board approval.
Motion by Mr. Constant, a second by Ms. Hall. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Constant and Ms. Hall for meeting a lot.
We love it.
Maybe we'll appoint you to SILT too.
I got nothing else.
Item 6.
That was sarcasm.
I was gonna say
Ms. Hirota's term on SILT is ending soon.
That's
In the middle. All right, item 6.1 is the County Committee on School District Organization Committee Member Nomination. This is basically the county committee that deals with redistricting district boundaries. Entire districts, not the districts within a boundary, but the boundary, student enrollment boundaries of the district. There are, okay, there is, I'm a member, just so you know, it's based on supervisory districts, and they have an opening in District 4. So we don't have a member in District 4.
I moved to.
I don't think we have to.
Do we have to approve this
I don't
slate?
think so.
Oh,
Let
we
it-
don't.
Let it die on the vine.
Let it
Okay.
die. Yep.
I take that back.
All right, any pending agenda items? None?
When's our next district? Vote by districts thing happening?
Well,
The district mapping, when is that happening
district
next?
mapping is.
What's the next date? When is the next agenda item coming?
He's not here today?
We have a November meeting that's planned not for the board, but that's for the public to come. And so hopefully in the next couple weeks, we should have the website ready. So as soon as that's ready, we'll put out a district-wide email so everybody can start playing. The tentative timeline now is for the next two public hearings to be January and February, where in January, the maps will be presented to the board, the first draft maps.
Thank you.
Okay, our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Thursday, October 28th, back here on the campus of Wood Creek High School, starting at 7 p.m. Board and staff comments. Joe? Brad?
Oh,
Um,
oh, sorry.
do we need to go back to closed
Yes, we
session?
Yeah, we have to go
Yes,
back.
we
to
do.
closed session.
Yes, we do.
We do it another day.
No, we're already here. We said we
Back, so I may not show up. That's just me. April? Uh,
I just wanted to thank the principals who let me come and visit, and Dr. Moore for the popping in on your visits. They're always my favorite things to do is visiting the schools. So thanks to all of you. Oh, and Jennifer Layton too, for taking me around Roosevelt High School. I got to peek in on awesome classes and Mrs. Ford as well, and got to watch my son doing sit-ups, and he didn't know in PE. So the campuses are doing great. And I wanted to thank all the people who came to speak tonight too, even though they're mostly all gone, but we always appreciate when, you know, the community comes and speaks. I know it's can be kind of scary and intimidating, so thank you to all of you who come and sit here the whole time with us, and it means a lot. So keep on coming.
I just want to make an editorial comment, because I'm not very happy with CSBA. For those of you out there who are listening, California School Boards Association is a trade organization, so to speak, with school board members across the state. And I want to read to you some comments they made recently that I don't think are in the best interest of us or our students. And these are, I'm not going to put quotes in front of all of them, but these are all their words. The California School Boards Association welcomes the state's decision to use its longstanding legal authority to add COVID-19 inoculations to the vaccine requirements. Then they went on to say that California requires a more comprehensive strategy that frees local school boards from the need to act as de facto public health officials. Those decisions are better left to the people at the state level who are designated to do so. In addition, a statewide standard for student vaccinations may help diffuse some of the unlawful behavior directed at school board trustees by those who oppose local mandates. So that's their words. Now we're transitioning to my words. I don't need them to take the pressure off me to do my job, to represent the local community that I was elected to represent. And I don't think those of you out there who disagree with me disagree with our board or are passionate about your children's education, I don't think we need to be insulated from your irritation with the state or us. That's what we're here for. I do hope that you'll be respectful, and I prefer you not make the threats that some people have made. But I welcome you to come here, and for the association that we're a part of, that we pay a lot of money to, that is supposed to represent our best interests, to tell us that we shouldn't be listening and we have to be protected from you who put us here to make the decisions for your children is wrong. And for an association that has long held values of local control to say that they celebrate the fact that the control is taken away from us and dictated from the state, I just think is wrong. So I just wanted to say that public in a meeting. I already told them what I think of it. They're not representing me in my role as a school board. I don't think they're representing you well. And while I'm at it, I don't think we need the FBI to come tell us how to listen to you and how we should be protected from you as the federal governments do. You guys have a right to come here. You have a right to tell us what you think. You have a right to be mad at us. I just prefer you don't harm us. But, you know, be nice. Tell us when we're screwing up and tell us when we're doing well.
No comment.
I'll just say, got a chance to go to another, to West Park's volleyball. A lot of people on hand and great activities. Plus, we had the Bill Santucci Memorial Golf Tournament. Raised, how much money did we end up raising, Joe? Still calculating? $25,000 a year. That goes to student scholarships within our district, usually $1,000 per student. So that's a great fundraiser. And thank you, Joe, for all your hard work on that too. And other members of this committee, Mr. Becker, Ms. Layton, Mr. Hasty, all participated. Kirk Euler, Carol Garcia, Aldo Panesci, Brian Rocco, his staff. So a good group. And second year I've been involved with it. Thank you for coming out too. And yes, ladies, longest drive was our own Julie Hirota, and so congratulations. She's a good golfer. So, Scott? Done. All right, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting at, oh, I forgot. And you stayed here past at 9 o'clock, we said cutoff time. Elizabeth, floor is yours.
Hi, I'm the Independence High School student rep. So I spoke to the student reps previous this week at our meeting and over Zoom, and they wanted me to share that Oakmont's homecoming is this week, and they've been having amazing spirit days and are looking forward to their dance this Saturday. Wood Creek's homecoming is next week. They chose Disney as their theme, and they start building floats tomorrow. Fall sports are wrapping up. Tennis and water polo are going to the playoffs. And then Wood Creek has been raising $10,000 to grant a wish for a child through Make-A-Wish. And they're revealing the Wish Kid between the JV and varsity game this Friday. And then West Park is performing Romeo and Juliet the first week of November. And then Independence High School is having our first Spirit Week, October 25th through the 29th. We chose the theme superheroes. And in our new student government program, we have been learning leadership skills, what is our why, and have been choosing positive events to build school culture.
Meeting's adjourned at 10 o'clock.